Call this meeting to order, a workshop here at City Commission, virtual workshop. It is Tuesday, August 11th, approximately 6:07 p.m. And again, it's a virtual workshop, and we have commissioners available for this workshop. And at this time, we'll have the invocation by Mr. Alberto Perez and the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Gilbert Milan.
Mayor and Commissioners, please bow our heads. Dear God, we ask you for your support in continuing to fight the pandemic COVID-19. We ask in your name for the safety of all our first responders, especially the ones that are tending to the sick people in the hospitals. We also ask for all of our elderly and young kids that are sick of this pandemic, that you pull them through and that they make it another day. In memory of everybody that's passed, we also ask for their forgiveness of their sins, and that you help us, continue to live a fruitful life here in the city of Rio Grande City. In your name we ask, thank you, God.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee. One state, under God, one and indivisible.
All right.
Roll call and finding a quorum, Ms. Garza?
Yes, sir. We have Mayor Villarreal,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Garza,
Here.
here. Commissioner Ramirez,
Here.
and Commissioner Jones. We have a quorum.
Thank you. So today what we're doing is having the workshop for the budget cycle for this 2021 budget cycle year. And you have packets in front of you, commissioners, and we have some of the directors, or mostly all the directors here. So the idea is to look at our budget and look to see where we're going to be saving some, what we need to do, what can we cut, what are our proposals for next year, considering how the pandemic has affected us as well. And of course, at this point is to be looking at how do we make things better while still providing the services to our community that are much needed and continue to grow. So with that being said, to all the directors, when, of course, commissioners have the packets in front of you, so might be asking questions to all the directors pertaining to your department. So please interject and give us some feedback, so that way we can make informed decisions as we're continuing this next budget cycle. So with that, Mr. Perez.
Mayor and Commissioners, we have some presentations prepared for you on the major projects by the different or the respective directors. But before we get started, I kind of just wanted to touch on about 4 or 5 things. Obviously, COVID-19 has extended the impact to our economy in the city of Rio Grande City, and we don't know how much longer it's going to be around. Okay. I know there are a lot of people working towards trying to, get this behind us and controlling or at least leveling the curve to where it starts going in a downward, descending way. But we're not there yet. And with COVID-19, of course, we don't know if it's going to be around another 5 months, 6 months, 12 months. So with that in mind, I just want to also highlight, with everything that's been going on, hotel tax is down 35%. The public utilities delinquent accounts are at $500,000 plus, and we'll be discussing a little bit more tomorrow in the city meeting, where we are with that and what we're doing next. Because obviously COVID-19 impacted the municipal court. Municipal court collection fees are down. And the latest and greatest, of course, insurance for employees is up 15%. Ms. Bayas and Ms. Brown work with the insurance company that provides insurance to our employees. They started at 25%. They were able to bring them down to 15% increase. It's still a lot. But with that in mind, obviously we have expenses that are pretty much set, but we also have expenses that we're not planning to do and incur. So those are the kind of things we're having to work with every day for the rest of this year and next fiscal year. So as we go through this process, we have big projects in the works, a lot of good things for the community improvements that are going to help us as a community. But also keep in mind, there's a lot of things that we are not going to be able to do. So in consideration of all these factors, I will turn it over to the first presenter, which is Mr. Cruz. We'll go over what they have as far as what's already designated or aligned as being to be kicked off as a project. Funds are available for that. Of course, we have the certificate of obligations that you were able to successfully approve for the city to go and borrow money at a low interest rate. So they're going to go over their projects first, and then we'll turn it over to Mr. Cantu, our finance director, so he can go over what the plan is with what we have left in the regular budget. And then we'll entertain questions and whatever discussion you might have. Mr. Cruz, are you available, ready to go? We can't hear you.
Yes, sir. Ashley, do you want to make me a... Oh, there, sorry, go. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes,
Can you
sir.
see my screen? Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. So, as Mr. Pettis said, obviously there's a shortage of revenue coming in throughout the city, and as he told us, our fees have gone from 14,000 to $500,000 due to some of these issues we're suffering with the COVID. But I can proudly say that 2020 and 2021 there will not be a shortage of projects, even with this pandemic hitting us, because of obviously the COs that we have going on, and obviously some of the grants and funding that we qualified for this last year. So with that being said, I just want to kind of go over some of the major projects that we're going to be hitting. I'm going to try to go through this pretty quickly because I know there's a lot of departments that we have to go over. If at any point you have a question or you want clarification on something, just by all means, just stop me. So the first project obviously is the expansion of the wastewater treatment plant. And as you know, we received a $7 million loan for the expansion of the water treatment plant. $2 million of that will be forgiven. The city is currently advertising for engineering services, bond counsel, and financial advisor. We're on our second week of advertisement for engineering service, and our first week of has just passed for financial advisor. The second obviously major project that we have that we're working on, and I want to go retroactive because in 2019 we did a lot of stuff with this in-house, and this is a restoration of the old water plant. A lot of the stuff maybe you didn't see or you did see out there, and obviously the biggest thing you did see was a demolition of the old water tank that was there, an eyesore that kind of had been condemned by TCEQ. We had the restoration of the 1.5 million tank, which is directly behind that. And then excavations of the ponds. So as you can see, those two ponds, we re-excavated those ponds, created some more retention for them, which is going to allow for more capacity for the water to be able to be discharged to. The outfall was obviously cleared, as you see in the back, and a lot of that stuff was done in-house through our crews and with assistance from a local contractor. So all that stuff was done in 2019. In 2020, we're looking at the replacement of electrical systems and panels, which you approved last meeting. We're looking at replacement of valves, and then after that, we're going to look at an evaluation of pumps and motors, cleaning out the oxidation ditches. The first thing that we want to do first is get the system up and going again. Once we get the plant up and going with our engineers and our staff, we'll be able to have a better assessment of how much is going to need to be put into actually fully restoring this plant. But so we're going at that. Money was set aside, obviously, through the COs to be able to tackle these things. So it's not coming out of our general budget. It's coming out of COs, which we allocated about $350,000 to kind of get us started with this. So when we talk about assets, obviously in 2019, we really secured a lot of assets. We had a new Vector truck. We purchased some more trucks for the fleet, more equipment for our staff outside. And in 2020, when we went out for COs, we needed to purchase a new backhoe. Obviously, one of our backhoes has been down, and the maintenance that we're constantly having to send in to get maintenance, it just wasn't, the cost is not what it basically is worth. So we went out for a CO for a new backhoe. Obviously, the backhoe is waiting for us. I think we're supposed to have a PO by today, so that hopefully we can receive that backhoe by tomorrow. The beautiful thing is that they actually have it in town, so we're not gonna have to wait 3 to 6 months for that backhoe to be built. It's actually gonna be ready to go as soon as we provide them the PO. As you're aware, during this flooding and the hurricane that we had, we purchased 2 6-inch diesel discharge pumps, and those pumps were actually being used in the flooding that we had. And we were actually able to help out local communities as well too. I know that we helped out Roma as well too with some of the flooding they had with the pumps that we had. So going back to some of the needs that we have, some of the things that we need to talk about, and some of the, obviously, the voids that are still with the city and the department, is we need a generator for the river pumps. So with this last hurricane that hit, we had our river pump that went out, and you guys already know the situation. The river pump went out. Obviously, we're at capacity at the water plant, so we were able to go about 3 days without power and still have enough water to supply the community. But we don't want to end up in that situation, so we've gone out to look for pumps. Look for generators, and we're looking at possibly. So we had a quote at purchasing a new generator, and the quote was, and I'm sorry, this number is actually wrong. That's on the presentation, because the quote that we had for the river pump was at $88,000. But by doing some research, we actually went to a local, not a vendor, United Rentals, and the same generator that was going to be at $88,000 for us, they're giving to us for $31,000. So it's about a third of what the actual cost is going to be. Now, the reason we're looking at purchasing this generator used is because even the gentleman that was going to sell us the new pump at $88,000 told us, if you're not going to use the pump every day for everyday use, it makes no sense to spend $88,000. That generator that we're looking at purchasing will not only be used for the river pumps, but if City Hall goes down again, which we've had a couple times this last year, we'll be able to basically just plug and play. With our electrician being here, he says he can convert it to where all we have to do is just back up that generator and plug it into City Hall, and we'll be able to, our City Hall will have a generator to be able to still operate. We're looking at also purchasing 2 smaller generators, which will be used for the lift stations. Now, those generators, brand new, cost about $35,000 a piece. What we've been able to do is, with the same vendor, United Rentals, is secure them for about $10,000 each. So basically, for the price of 1, we're getting 2, and actually less of the price of 1, we're getting 2. So those are some of the expenses that we're looking at, obviously occurring this year. So if you look at the picture right there to the left, that is obviously where all our sludge is collected. Our guys right now have to manually grab that sludge and dump it into a tractor that's then put into the disposal beds. They've been doing it manually with a shovel for years and years. Obviously, it's unsanitary. Obviously, it's we're losing a lot of efficiency as far as time and effort from our guys when they could be out doing other things in the plant. So what we're looking at purchasing is a small skid steer. This skid steer, obviously, I have some quotes that we've secured. A used skid steer costs $37,000, but a brand new skid steer, brand new 2020, is costing $39,000. When I asked that, how can that be? Apparently, they're not selling as much, so they're putting some huge discounts on all these new pieces of equipment that they have on there just because they're trying to get rid of them. So they're trying to push for us to buy new. So it's the total opposite of what we're going through with the pump. With the generators. The skid steer, we can get brand new for about $2,000 more than what we would find a used one. So it's a no-brainer to go for the new one. And then you're getting all the 5-year warranties and everything that they have. I'm sorry, let me backtrack on those generators that we're going to be purchasing. They all come with a 1-year warranty that's guaranteed by the seller, United Rentals. The next item that we have is a 2020 Chevy 2500 diesel truck. Now, I have this on there, and this is just to bring to the council for advisement. After meeting with Mr. Perez and Mr. Cantu, one of our trucks went down, and it's going to need a total reconstruction of the motor, the engine. Pistons went out on it, and we're looking at a cost of about $15,000 of what it's going to cost us to rebuild that engine, get it up and going again. After meeting with Mr. Cantu and Mr. Perez, it was discussed that, obviously that's not a smart move for us to make. If we're going to put $15,000, we might as well look at purchasing a new vehicle for the fleet. Obviously, as I'm sure you guys are well aware, once you go and replace the motor once, they're never the same. So we're looking at purchasing a new truck for the fleet, and that's looking at about $40,000. And then we have a mobile water tank. The mobile water tank was actually included in the COs, and that is going to cost us about $47,000. That money was already allocated when we went out for the CO, so that's nothing that's coming out of our pocket. In total, there's about $381,000 in assets that we're going to be looking at securing and purchasing of equipment for this year. Out of that, $138,000 will actually be coming out of our budget or the PUD's coffers. And after meeting with Mr. Cantu and getting his advisement, it looks like we'll be able to do that without hurting ourselves dramatically. I want to, before I go further, a lot of these reasons why we're able to do this is because the guys have been really, really efficient in a lot of these leaks. The way we're managing our budget as far as just going out and as you're well aware, last year we were spending about $15,000 to $18,000 a month on Vector services. We're no longer spending that money. So we're saving a lot of money. We're being a lot smarter with how we spend money, and we're able to purchase some of these bigger ticket items. I know it looks like we're just going out and buying things all the time, but we're being really smart behind the scenes on how we obviously operate our department so that we're able to go out for some of these bigger ticket items. Let's talk about infrastructure maintenance and operations. So there's 4 big ticket items when you talk about infrastructure. One is the completion, and all these have already, obviously there's funding already secured for them. They either are funded, they've been paid for, or we're currently paying for them. So there's nothing new that's going to be hitting us. It's something that obviously the commission's well aware of. And the first one is the completion of the Los Garcias lift station. That one is obviously, we just received word from Mr. Sabas that there's a meeting that's going to be held this Friday, and that is about obviously the determination of the property that is being condemned so that we can finish out this project. So we're hoping that that goes well. Then we have the maintenance and replacement of the fire hydrants. Obviously, we're trying to create a standard of replacing so many fire hydrants a year, whether it's just replacement or maintenance of them. And we're working alongside Chief Muniz with that. So we're trying to program for another 10 at minimum this year. I know we talked to Mr. Perez about possibly outsourcing it so that they can get done a lot quicker and not tie up our staff. Right now, our staff, because of this COVID, sometimes we're operating on just 2-3 guys on a crew. Right now, I'm operating with just one crew because of staff has been isolated or self-quarantining themselves due to the COVID. So obviously, outsourcing some of this work will definitely help us out getting it done a lot quicker. Scheduled maintenance and rehabilitation of the 750 kg standpipe. That is scheduled to be done this year. And then the 1 million composite tank and Garcias Street are also scheduled to be done this year. So we have 3 tanks that will be done and scheduled this year to have rehabilitation work done, and maintenance done to them. Also, they'll be setting up to paint the logo of the 1.5 million gallon tank. And those are all part of infrastructure that we'll be doing, that we're going to be aiming to do this year. So let's talk about the CO projects that we went out for. Obviously, there's a list of CO projects, and all these projects were already approved by the commission. And obviously, these are projects that we're wishing that we're going to be tackling this year. If you have any questions in specific to each project, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But if not, then obviously we can proceed. Obviously, you already know the projects. We identified them a year ago. And so this is some of the projects that we definitely need to tackle. Now, some of these projects, I will add, some of these projects that I say sewer. Obviously, we're working with our engineer because there could be a possibility at us receiving a grant that some of these funds may be covered so that we don't have to allocate all these CO funds towards those projects. So we're working every day with our engineers and obviously our finance director, Mr. Cantu, just to make sure we're in the up and up and how we're managing to spend these funds. As I just talked about, some additional funding sources and projects that I want to make sure that the commission is well aware of. We went out for a $13 million grant through NAD Bank. We received a pre-approval. So everything we hear from our engineers and just people on the outside is that it's looking really, really good for us. Obviously, if we can receive that $13 million, $7 million of that will be allocated to pay off, or I'm sorry, $5 million of that will be allocated to pay off the loan that we have, the remaining balance that we have with the Texas Water Board Development. And the rest of that will be aimed at that grant is very specific to, it needs to be sewer improvements. Mr. Guerra is well aware how to, he has some projects that he's identified that he wants to tackle, that he's submitted. So once we get further along, we'll bring those projects to the commission so that we can look at and then go from there. But that has received a pre-approval. So everything looks good right now. A PIF was submitted, a project information form has been submitted to the Texas Water Board Development for the restoration and adding capacity for the old water treatment plant. So when I first started, I said that we were obviously spending $350,000 to just get the plant up and going. But if you've been out there, you know that this plant needs a full restoration. It needs a full facelift on it. And so what we've done is we've gone out for a PIF to see if we can secure funding to be able to do that. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to do that just on our own. So our engineers have submitted that. And Abasolo to FM 7055 bypass project. This project is about a $500,000 project that our engineers, we've kind of gone back and forth with our engineers and Mr. Perez. And one of the biggest things that we've talked about, and I know Commissioner Jones, you brought this up a couple of times, is the water pressure in Las Lomas and how do we address that issue. So this is something that our engineers have looked at. It's something that they feel would be a long-term approach into not only helping the water pressure in Las Lomas, but basically helping the water pressure all throughout that area. That obviously we're looking at benefiting. The project is about $500,000, and if we secure the funding, obviously this is something that we're looking at definitely tackling. Also, what we're looking at doing also is tying in an 8-inch water line to an existing water supply company north of us, so that we can also be able to use them to help with the water pressure as well too. So this is a project that we're looking at also tackling, and all that stuff has been submitted for funding. and hopefully sometime in the spring of 2021, we should know where we stand with that. That's pretty much all I have. I'll leave it up for any questions or concerns or comments.
Those are excellent projects, and obviously, like when you're looking at the next year as we're moving forward, those $13 million, and hopefully we will get those grants or that grant to expand on those services, and that would go a long way. So what we can do, if there are no questions about the projects, let's go over in a little bit more detail about the budget itself and line items. Or unless commissioners have any questions about the projects that Mr. Cruz just mentioned, or we can go ahead and go, and that's what we can do by department. We can just go down the line items and some questions that we have.
Mayor, if I can ask one question, it's regarding what Mr. Cruz about adding capacity to that facility.
Yes, sir.
What are we looking at, Steve?
To which facility? The wastewater treatment plant or the water plant?
You were talking about the water plant, weren't you?
Well, basically, we've added capacity. We upgraded the 1.5 million gallon tank. Obviously, it's up and going. But one of the things that when they submitted the PIF, obviously the language has to state that they're looking at not only upgrading but expanding and adding capacity to it. So Mr. Guerra would have more information in regards to the exact language that they submitted for it. But it's something that obviously it would be very beneficial because it's going to help the west side of the city. I'm sorry, the east side of the city.
What is the MGD of that plant? The way it was.
1.5.
We were pulling a whole lot more than that out of it.
Yeah, we were. In fact, right now, once we have both plants operating, it's about 12 million gallons per day that we can go ahead and distribute. But typically during the summer, it's what, 5 million gallons per day. Water use maybe 6 million at most.
I'm sorry, what was the question that you asked, Commissioner? I thought you were asking about the tank.
I thought that you had said that part of the project was to add capacity to the old water plant.
Yes, sir.
And what are we looking at? How much? What are we?
Everything is preliminary right now, Commissioner. Obviously, our engineers submitted a PIP, and that's what they submitted was to add capacity. I don't have specifics on it right now, and I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you exactly what it is. But I know that our engineers have submitted to add capacity. Obviously, the city is growing, and so they're looking at the future when they try to go out for those loans and financial assistance. And when you submit that, you want to put that language in there to obviously show that we're trying to benefit and be beneficiaries of this grant that's coming in.
I thought you had specifics on what you all were trying to do there.
Everything is preliminary as far as the PIF goes.
Okay.
But I can get that language, Commissioner. I can get it to you as far as what specifically we're going for.
Okay.
Steve, real quick. I know I've been questioning basically the pressure, the water pressure, especially there right next to Taco Bell where Blue Way Car Wash is planning on coming in, and I've been at ease with the water pressure at the new development, and is everything on track, because I'm still not satisfied that we're going to have the capacity to be able to satisfy the restaurants that are going to be there. Are we on top of that with the engineers and everything with the numbers? Because now I seem that we're trying to connect from different places throughout the city, and we're talking about pressure, and I've been talking about this for the past 2 years. Are we okay on that, Steve? Are we on top of that?
I'm sorry, Commissioner, to answer your question, we have been meeting with our engineers probably every day or every other day about this. I know the biggest concern is with Blue Wave coming in, is it gonna take from the pressure, obviously, that we already have, the issues that we already have? We've been reassured by our engineers that there will be no lack of pressure coming in, but that's why they've also proposed this project, which is gonna benefit the area, and it's basically upgrading the lines from what they are right now to 12-inch lines all the way. And what I can do is I can meet with you directly, Commissioner, and I can show you the plans that we've kind of identified in the project scope of what they've identified for that project. But everything that we've been told, Commissioner, is that it should not affect the pressure within that area.
Okay, I just want you to be on top of this, dude. I don't want any excuses when everything comes into play. I don't want to hear any excuses that this is not happening, this is not, just want the numbers to be there and for us to be prepared for it, not to slack off on this. Just make sure we have the pressure. That's all I'm saying, because I've been out there for the past 2 years.
One of the biggest concerns, because I know it's been brought up, and we've met with the engineers multiple times, Mr. Perez and I, and they reassure us that everything points that there should not be any issues with pressure. But what I'll do is I can coordinate a meeting if you like, just so we can meet with the engineers, and that way you get a little bit more reassurance from them directly as far as the issue, there not being any issues.
As long as you're on top of it, Steven, that's basically what counts. I just don't want to hear any excuses at the end when we turn on the valve. That the pressure's not there.
Yes, sir. I got you.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Okay, with that, we got Ms. Guillen following Mr. Cruz. Ms. Guillen?
Well, hold on, Mr. Perez. Let's go down the list here on the budget items. So the line items, so we can be clear. So let's start off on page 57, Mr. Cruz, and we're going to do this just on some of the items, just you can give me just a quick update on those. So let's start off, for example, on permanent salaries from 2019-2020 proposed budget to 20-21. I noticed that there was a $9,000 difference there. Did we lose somebody, or why is it a little bit less? Which is okay. I'm just asking what transpired or what made that change there.
So you're telling me we still have $9,000 available?
What I'm saying is that it's down, and I want to be clear as to what happened. Did we lose somebody?
Well, Mr. Mayor, what we did was when we lost Mr. Basan, we basically kind of shifted around some of the duties and responsibilities to some of our staff. I felt that Mr. Cantu was very capable of being able to manage the crews outside, without us having to go out and secure an assistant director. So what we did was we basically reclassified Mr. Enriquez's title to field operations manager. And then what we did was we assigned responsibilities to create basically foreman of each plant. So at our sewer plant, we have a foreman that basically oversees the operations there. Our water plant, we have a foreman that oversees the operations there. So basically what Mr. Basan was doing before was he was assigned to all these things. Okay. What we did is we segregated the duties, which made it a lot easier for the staff itself, because now they have to just report to one person specifically, and I just report to one person specifically as far as when we have any issues. So it's been very, very good. If there's an issue, I know exactly who to go to. And what that has done is it's basically freed up, we haven't basically gone and filled that vacancy.
Okay. Now going down on the same page on bank and credit card charge, last year it was at 4,100, and I see a proposed of 26,000. What changed there?
I'm going to defer that to our financial.
Good evening, Mayor.
It's page 57 of the packet.
Okay, I got you.
Utility department. So what we can do is go under each individual department and kind of just highlight some of the areas just to be clear. So on page 57, if you go down to other services and charges, down to bank and credit card charge, it's item 501, 5481, 435, and I just see a difference there from 4,000 last year to 26,000. What's changing there?
Yes, if I may, Mayor and Commissioners, if I just may add also to the payroll that you asked, the previous question on the payroll. Also, on that one, I know Stephen, Mr. Cruz, shifted some of the positions. So last year, I know they had an asset manager, like he said, he's doing more with less now. So we had an asset manager, an OP manager. This time it's only on administration. It's himself, the assistant director, and the electrician that are covered on that payroll. And last year there were 5 employees that were being covered under administration. So now basically they're doing the job of 5. And also on the bank and credit card charges, I guess that was just an oversight on my part last year. We're charging those charges over on the billing and collections. But those are the credit card charges that they get charged every month on the credit cards that they use. Obviously, this last couple of months, the credit cards have been higher because we've had less people coming in, more people paying online using the credit cards. So those charges have gone up, and I'm expecting those to continue for the next couple of months at least. So, and at the end of this year, again, that was this year they've already used close to 25,000 in credit card charges, and those are just the credit card, whatever the credit card company charges for the use of credit cards. We get those every month, and every month they've been going up for the last couple of months.
Okay, so just to be clear, so last year was 4,000, or that number is incorrect?
We budgeted 4,000. It was incorrect. It was an oversight on my part. We've used so far this year on that one, we've used 22,000. So we're expected to be close to 26,000 by the end of the year, by the end of the fiscal year.
And moving on down to dues and subscriptions, what changed from last year 8,000 to now 14,000? What was the difference there? Under dues, same page, dues and subscriptions. If you just scroll down to dues and subscriptions, I see a difference from 8,000 this year, and next year it'll be 14. Was there a significant difference for dues and subscriptions of matters of related to what?
Let me check on that real quick. Hold on.
Okay.
Are those tied to the reports?
What's that, Mr. Pettit?
Are those tied to the monthly reports to TCQ, Cruz, or not?
That's what I'm thinking. I know Mr. Cantu has the exact information, but that's what I'm thinking. It's probably tied to the reports that we're now having to do. What we've done is we've also outsourced all the reporting and that's being done. So just like we did with the water tanks, before the city was responsible for doing the inspections, everything having to do with the water tanks. And as you're well aware, we weren't on top of it. And that's why we received a lot of violations with some of these tanks. What I tried to do is I tried to get ahead of the game, and we outsourced the inspections and all the reporting for the water and sewer plants as well too. So basically it's like having a third party do all our inspections for us and all our reporting for us, so that it helps us continue our day-to-day operations without having to do that. And it makes sure that everything's being done in a timely manner.
Okay, but is that part of dues and subscriptions?
I'm assuming, is that Mr. Cantu?
Basically what it is, Mayor, is the dues and subscriptions here are going to be the Tyler. That's the software that all the city uses. We use that for the collections. And again, just to be clear on this one, this is pretty much going to be the first year that we get to pretty much actually work with actual numbers. I know on the previous years we were working on the audits. There were so many changes that were happening throughout the process of the budget. So the numbers that were being worked with ended up changing at the end of the year when the audit was done. This is actually the first year that we're caught up on last year's, and I could actually say that this year's numbers, I'm actually working with the actual numbers that have been expensed in the prior year and the previous 4 years. So what we're doing is we're going with an average of what they spent in the last 4 years, and this time around we're making sure that every PO that gets submitted gets expensed right account.
We're upgrading our systems and so on. Okay.
Some of those expenses before, it's not that we're looking at more now this year, is that they were being, I guess, expensed on other line items.
Okay.
We're being more careful with where they put it, where they put those expenses. Both me, myself, and Mr. Perez take a really good look at those POs and make sure that they're putting, because sometimes they either go by me or they go by Mr. Perez, and then my accounts payable clerk, he also catches them. So we're on top of those, and we're actually working with closer numbers. And those are 2 subscriptions that the public utility is going to be using. They pretty much pay them every year. But in the previous years, they were putting one subscription under dues, and another one they would probably put it under contract services, for instance. So they weren't expensed at the right account. So this year they are.
So let's move on to page 59.
Mayor, I have a,
Go
are
ahead.
we anticipating some other expenses on contract services? Because it's going from 12.5 to 60,000.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, we're trying to do most of this work on our own. We've gotten a vacuum truck, and we've tried to do some of these services ourselves. I'm just wondering if we're anticipating any services that we weren't getting this last year.
Yes, Commissioner. If I may on that one, it's a good thing you brought it up, because I made some changes today. I sat with Cindy she's actually the one that works more closely on all the POs. She works more than Mr. Cruz. So she was missing last time we sat with Mr. Cruz. So she brought up a good point today. So in that line item, actually, instead of being what is that? We have 26,000. It's going to be 150,000, not 26,000. I'm sorry, I should have brought that up before. 120,000 of those are going to go to the McGuire, and that's the contract that we have with them. That's a quarterly expense of 30,000 that we pay to them. That's the maintenance on the tanks, if I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And then so that gives us a total of 120,000, and then we're adding 30,000 for TCEQ reportings. I know Mr. Cruz mentioned that one of our employees left suddenly, so the TCEQ reports weren't being submitted, and we got fined. I believe Mr. Cruz has more information on that one, but now we're going to be contracting TCEQ to be on top of all those reports and making sure that we're on time with all those.
That's correct.
So those referring back, so from 12 to 60, let me make sure I'm not sure I understood that portion. So last year was 12,500. This year you're proposing 60,000. He's referring to contract services under page 57, and it's item 501 5481 414 or
Yes.
414.
Yeah,
So-
we entered into that contract last year. I think we had already cleared the budget last year, so it's 120,000
from last year, and then, okay. All right. Any others, commissioners? Any others that stand out that you all have questions about?
Mayor, one more thing I want to add to that I forgot to add is with the going back to the salaries, we lost 2 employees, and Mr. Cantu actually added on the I forgot to mention this. We lost 2 employees. One of the employees that we lost, he had been doing the reporting for us. I guess that's pretty much what Mr. Basan had him doing, was reporting. So when he left, we lost that. Obviously, we lost all that reporting, but we also had that salary. With that salary and Mr. Basan's salary, we were actually able to secure our electrician that we haven't has as well too. So we not only secured the electrician, but we also were able to supplement income for some of these individuals that we assigned additional duties to.
Okay.
So I just want to add that obviously we also brought in an engineer, which I'm sure you guys are well aware of. I mean, not an engineer, an electrician who's
Right.
Obviously been assisting, and the cost savings on that already, he's saved the city over $200,000 already. And what we're doing with him is every time he gets a work order, he's putting in a cost estimate together, just as if he was a contractor. And what he's doing is he's basically tallying up the savings that he's providing the city.
So let's continue on to page 59 under Billings and Collections. Under total salaries, it went from 148 to 154. What changed there? Under Billings and Collections. Page 59.
Mr. Cantu, I
Yeah,
don't have it.
I'm checking on last year's only just to compare it to this year's and see what the change there was.
And as you're waiting for that one, also the postage, if you look under other services and charges, it was 21,000 last year. Now this year will be 35,000. Did it go that much? Or are we doing something different that it's costing us quite a bit more for postage?
What was that for postage?
Yes.
What we've done is obviously, we're basically, the postage goes based off of weight. And this year we sent a lot of messages and additional information that's gone out to the community aside from just our standard billing. Because the PUD has access to a lot of these accounts and addresses and residents, everything that goes through with whether it's the EDC, Public Works, planning, anything that needs to go out, it goes through us. And so we incur that cost of obviously having to send these documents out or these newsletters or whatever we're trying to get out to the public.
We send more correspondence out than previous years.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Will be, considering with this COVID. Did you get an answer, Mr. Cantu, regarding those salaries? Was there an increase somewhere? Or?
Well, what happened on that one is last year's, there was some miscommunication or misunderstanding on my part when we did the budget. I don't know if you recall, there was $1,000 raise for all the employees across the board for the city. I didn't pick up the PUD at that time because I don't know if you recall that they had already gotten some raises throughout the year, and I figured they weren't going to get them. But then at the end of the day, they told me, you know what, they needed to have gotten that raise. So everybody got that raise, but it just wasn't on the budget. So everybody's budget on the PUD department is going to be slightly off because of those $1,000 that they ended up getting. And this year I'm budgeting for them, so they ended up getting that this year, not last year, on their budget, but they did get it.
But it'll reflect something that was already proposed from last year.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Also go ahead.
Mr. Cantu, I wanted to touch on the bad debt. Did you want to kind of let them know what is the plan or what are we looking at?
Oh yeah, basically what the bottom line here on the public utility department is, I believe on the report that I gave you, you're looking at $62,000 in the black for the water department. That's pretty much saying that they are $62,000 in the black. But with that change that I made today when I was talking to Cindy, that increased our administration cost by $90,000. So we ended up being, I believe it was $16,000 in the red. Now those $16,000 in the red, $26,000 in the red actually. The PUD department, the way it works is we have to budget every year for depreciation, and we're budgeting $604,000 of depreciation. That's not money that goes in or out of the PUD. It's just something that needs to go in the budget because we need to, I guess, plan for the future. Every equipment gets depreciated. Let's just say today, it's 10 years since we got the last equipment upgrade. We needed to have that money available to make sure we can work with upgrades. So basically what the budget is saying is we're 26 in the red, but our cash flow is going to be there. And what Mr. Perez is referring to as far as the bad debt is the money is going to be there, but we don't act on collecting, I guess, what Mr. Perez referred to earlier. We have a $500,000 in bad, I guess, in overdues right now. A lot of those, we don't start collecting our bad debt expense, which we only budget for $38,000 every year. It's going to go much higher than that. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because I don't know if you recall last year, we wrote off $784,000 in bad debt that I guess it had never been done before in the city. They were just sitting there, so I had to write those off. And every year, those that amount keeps adding up, and every year we have to budget 30. Well, every year it's been budgeted 38,000. I've been following the same figure that was there when I first got here, but if nothing gets done, I guess on the what we're doing with the collections, I guess that number is also going to need to go up. Instead of 38,000, I don't know, maybe bring it up to 60,000, depending.
Are we referring to delinquent accounts? What are we referring to? What?
The delinquent account is the same as bad debts. Yes, that's basically
Okay,
what
so what's our delinquent account right now? And I'm assuming it has to do with all this COVID. And what are we doing about that? How are we reaching out people and letting them know that they're already over past due? What's the approach?
Today is the first day. Sorry, Mr. Gonzalez. Today's the first day that we actually initiated after meeting with Mr. Perez and Mr. Cantu. We've been going back and we're looking at these numbers. Obviously, the numbers are rising. We have right now we're at about $500,000 in obviously outstanding fees, which equates to about 4,500 accounts that are delinquent currently. So what we've done is we basically I have 2 staff members every day that all they're doing is just doing phone banking, calling residents and just letting them know that they're outstanding on their fees, asking them to come in and make some arrangements to obviously make payments or become current on their account. Due to the COVID, obviously, we haven't been able to, that as a city and the leadership of the city, it was the determination that we were not going to disconnect anybody due to obviously the hardships that the community is suffering right now. So what we're doing is we're just trying to make communication with them, let them know, we understand the situation, but if there's a means of being able to make some type of payment arrangements or setting up something to where they can come and make some type of payment, by all means, we definitely welcome those.
It sounds like you're going to need more than 2 people. Don't we have more staff that are currently not we have staff at home that can make those contacts as well, do we not? Because 2 people is not enough for 4,000 accounts. You need to have more people, or we need to have more people calling. Mr. Perez, what can we do there? Especially if we have other staff members that can help out with that.
They just started this week, so they're fine-tuning their message to make sure it's effective. And once we do that before the end of the week, we can reach out to the other departments that have staff at home. They can help us out with the process. So we'll come up with a process to divvy up the list and prioritize it to make sure we go after them as quickly as possible.
Let's do that. If we need more staff, absolutely, Mr. Cruz. Let's get some of the other staff members to help you out with that, because two people is just, there's no way with 4,000 accounts.
And trust me, I would definitely appreciate the help, Mayor, but you need to have access to Encode, and you need to be able to understand how to navigate through obviously all these accounts. My staff feels pretty confident. Our staff feels pretty confident that what we're doing is by alternating them every day, and obviously Nora as well too, the receptionist in the front, she'll be assisting. But also what we're doing is we're sending a text message as well too. So we're not just phone banking, we're sending a text message out with the language, basically letting them know they're delinquent in their accounts, come by, or they can make a payment online to be able to come current or make some type of payment arrangement. So we're hitting it twofold. We're not just phone banking, we're sending messages out as well too. But if I feel that there's a need, I'm going to kind of gauge it this week. And if I feel there's a need where, you know what, we need more support, I'll definitely get with Mr. Perez and ask for that. But what I want to do is I want to see if I can be able to do it within our department without having to burden anybody else.
Well, let's see, since it's $500,000 and that's a lot of money. So we're going to have to find a way to make.
We should be able to look at maybe generating a report. Maybe we can generate a report, Mr. Cruz, that
Yes, sir.
and a script for them, and they just keep up with a list and turn it back into you and let you know the results.
Okay.
And we
Whatever
can,
direction is the commission.
we can certainly start with that soft approach, obviously, especially during this time, but we need to address it. We can't just let it continue this way, because $500,000 delinquency, that's way too much. Which obviously is going to affect our operations. It's going to affect our CO certifications as well for future, or our rating as well, as far as A-bond rating and all these obviously have consequential effects if we don't take care of the delinquency account. So it's an action item. We have to, at the same time, being considerate, right? So I know it's a hard sell, but we have to be considered, yes, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we encourage people and help them out, how we can help them to get current with their accounts. So let's see what we can do there.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Let's continuing on page, so you answered that question. Moving on to page 60. Just on the landfill fees, I see we were at 68,000 last year. We're proposed, the proposed budget is 120. Did something change there? Because we're doubling it. What's happening there? It's page 60, item 485. Last three numbers, 485 under other services and charges.
I'm going to defer to you, Mr. Cantu.
Yeah, I'm looking at that one. Basically, again, last year, it's pretty much the last year that we thought we were going to be using as you can see, 2019, 2020. Yeah, I think what you mean, 68,000 was budgeted. I guess that was just I don't know why we budgeted 68,000, but right now we spent 192,000 as of July 31st, which gives us an approximate of 120,000. I know 18-19 was our first year. We spent 170,000. I don't know why. I don't have any notes as to why we.
Fine. You don't have to answer that today, but just get an answer so that way, as we move forward through the budget, we'll have. Because if not, so just keep that one in mind. I mean, because it's a considerable difference from last year to this year.
Yeah, I'll get you an answer. I just see that the year before we budgeted 170. I know there must have been something there where we were gonna make some savings and we budgeted less, but those savings apparently didn't happen. So we're at 192 right now, so we're projected to spend 120. I just can't recall what kind of savings.
That's fine. Let's move on. We can definitely get an answer moving forward. So item 62, page 62, you look at Duran water plant salaries. I see a big difference from 117 to 168. What changed there?
We added more staff. Obviously, we were operating on a kind of what I would consider a skeleton crew. Basically, minimal staff. We had lost staff throughout the year through retirement and just changing of positions. And so we had staff that was basically running double shifts. And so what we did was obviously we hired more staff. It's very hard to find individuals who are licensed. And so we have to, when we do have them, we have to try to do whatever we can to keep them. So obviously the pay has gone up and basically securing staff, the staff that we have, and then also obviously going out for additional staff as well too, because like I said, it's very hard to find someone, especially in this area of Rio Grande, that where you have people who are licensed that will stay here without going to another McAllen or somewhere else where obviously the pay is a little bit more.
But we added staff members is what you're, okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Moving on down to other services and charges, what's the difference there for cable and internet? It went from 2,500 last year to we're proposing 5,000. Did it go up that much, or what happened there? It's doubling from last year. Under cable and internet, item 416.
I think he added ESPN.
Now, didn't you add the SCADA? Is the SCADA requiring connectivity you didn't have before or not?
I wouldn't know why those fees went up. I'll defer to Mr. Cantu.
Again, Mayor, those would be one of the numbers that I guess they were being categorized to the wrong accounts before. Previous years we spent 2,400, 3,100, and then we budgeted 2,500 for last year. This year we've been very careful as to where they've been expensed. We're making sure that they're going to the right department, right accounts. They're projected to spend 4,000. So we're making sure that they just have enough money in there to cover for next year. We don't want to be over budget on that line item.
Okay.
So
I guess in the grand scheme of things, Mayor, basically this year the numbers are gonna be off in probably all the different fields, but it's because we're being a little bit cleaner, and Mr. Cantu is actually lining those things up where they go. Versus before, we were just kind of robbing from Peter to pay Paul throughout the years. Am I correct, Mr. Cantu?
yeah, and basically that's what it is, because if you look at the final number, our expenditures are pretty much what they were for last year.
Right. Okay, so we're putting them the correct accounts. Okay. Let's move on to item page 64, water plant number 1 salaries. And I see a big difference from last year. It was 145,000. This year is 81,000. Did we lose some people, or what happened there on?
Basically, we lost some people through retirement, and what we did was we reallocated staff as well too. Currently, the water plant is not operational, so we basically reallocated staff to assist us in other fields, other departments, and I didn't feel the need to be able to hire more staff when that plant's not even operational right now.
Okay. And going on to other services and charges, under preventive maintenance, I see it doubled from last year. What's the difference there? Are we just trying to do more as far as preventative maintenance? Is that part of the plan?
Before they
Yes,
weren't budgeting any preventive maintenance, none was being done. This year, I know Mr. Cruz is being on top of those. He's making sure that he's doing preventive maintenance on all the equipment that he needs. So that should save us some money in the long run.
Okay. And under utilities, I see the 140 last year to 194.
That again, maybe that's just one of those line items where they were being expensed to the wrong departments before. We're just on top of those.
But we're correcting all that then. Is that?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. Again, I guess the number that we could look at is at the end of the number for each department. Most of them are still around the same range. It's just we're choosing where they're being expensed to, making sure that they're being expensed to the right accounts.
Okay. So go on to page 66. I see under permanent salaries, it went up from 201 to 248,000. And what changed there for that one?
Basically, what I told you in the very beginning, Mayor, we kind of readjusted. We hired some additional staff for the water plant that we desperately needed. We've made some pretty big changes in how we are managing this department and the leadership roles of each department within the department. So overall, that's pretty much the direction we've gone.
We're adding staff members, obviously much needed staff members is really where, okay. Same thing for sewer plant, went from 57 to 69. I'm assuming it's the same thing.
We added one staff member there. Right now, we currently only had 2 people operating that plant, and they were working 7 days a week. Basically, we added a third person there, and that's helped them out. Just that third person that we've added, it's helped them out dramatically as far as being able to relieve some of the pressure and the workload on them.
And under the lab test, for example, other page, and I'm on page 68. It's other services and charges. We went from lab test last year 20,000 to this year 30,000. Is it just more expensive? Are we conducting more tests, or what's happening?
It's a mixture of both, and basically, without
Just say there's a lot of testing that was not being done that should have been done.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that, but yeah.
That's fine. Say it as it is, sir. We need to know and how to correct it and moving forward. So at this point, there are additional tests that must be conducted, and it's imperative that we take care of it. Okay.
There was a lot of oversight before, and now, you know, the people we have now, they're doing what they need to do to get things done right.
Perfect. Let's continue on that track. Under equipment rental, went from 500 last year to 22,000. Was that also an oversight? Under
no, what we did is we're leasing out 2 sludge collectors. These are 2 beds that are, if you go to the sewer plant, they're right there as soon as you drive in. Those are actually helping us with being able to process a lot of this sludge that we're getting, and so that we can get it out quicker. Also, we're going to be using those mobile sludge drying beds to be able to take a lot of this sludge that's in the tracks, because obviously that track is in violation with TCEQ. So our goal is to be able to use those same mobile beds to be able to dispose of some of the sludge that we have in those tracks as well too. So that is what it is. It's an expense that obviously we're going to have to incur. There's no way to go around that.
Okay. No, I mean, if it's anything having to do with any TCEQ violations or TCEQ requirements, then we need to make sure we're up to in compliance, absolutely. And as soon as we can do that, the same thing. All right, so continuing, going back, and I think you already answered the same thing. Page 70, sewer collection, salary increase there, or I'm assuming we hired more people, or did we, what happened there?
Yes.
Okay, so, all right. Those are the, anything else, Commissioners?
What we did was basically, we eliminated some obviously top tier positions, but we were able to get a lot more boots on the ground, if that makes sense. Basically, the salary of 1 position, we were able to get 2 positions for boots on the ground and get us more assistance in some of these departments where we really needed them. I hope that gives you a little bit more clarification on what we did.
It does, and streamlining some of the salaries, and but at the end, okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Cruz. Any questions for Mr. Cruz from the commissioners, or any questions on the proposed budget as per that department? Commissioners, no? All right. Thank you, Mr. Cruz. Appreciate it for answering all those questions.
Thank you.
Okay, after Mr. Cruz, we got Ms. Guillen. Ms. Guillen, are you on?
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Mayor, Commissioners, proposed budget for the EDC before you is balanced at roughly $2 million. It is projecting $1 million in sales tax revenue and is bringing about another $1 million in certificates of obligation funds.
Ms. Guillen,
Yes,
can I please have the page number?
I'm not sure where in the packet.
49, page 49.
Page 49, yes.
It proposes a little over $1 million in economic development projects. It maintains a healthy fund balance for our emergency operations, future project investments. It includes a debt payment for planning and land development to support the business industry recruitment, as well as commercial transportation project. If you have will you share the slide for EDC?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Can you share the slide?
Yes, let me.
Okay. So in this budget, there's a heavy emphasis on economic development projects. We are at the tail end of the EDA drainage project, which is the next slide. And that should be completed by the end of this week as far as our construction as per the EDA grant. And if you recall, the EDC made a matching contribution for construction efforts and drainage improvement efforts, and therefore we're bringing back that money into our fund balance. And that is a major project for us that will launch additional sales tax dollars as well as employment in our community. The next slide. And this transportation project ties into the project that will be discussed with you later in Thoroughfare Plan. But what it does is it makes the connection to our port of entry. We've talked about this. It's still in progress in partnership with the TxDOT. And so we have allocated funds to finish our portion of the planning and engineering for that project. Next slide. And then as part of our agreement with the developer over at St. Ives, we are coming into some acreage for the EDC that we have planned for development, and that's where our monies and certificate of obligations are going to be going towards developing this land. It's about 9.461 acres of property on the northwestern corner of the project area. And so what we will do is bring in infrastructure and get it shovel ready, site ready for potential investment. It'll require some planning, and what you see there in the illustration is just that, an illustration. We will work to master plan that property so that it is the right match for our prospective business investors. Next, I think that's the last slide. And those take up a lot of our funds, Mayor, Commissioners. Obviously, we are excited at the opportunity of being able to come into property that we can leverage to recruit and retain new industry and business in our community. So we are ready to move forward on that front.
Ma'am, Ms. Guillen, how many acres do we have there for the EDC?
It's 9.461 acres, sir.
9.6?
461.
Okay. That would be a great tool or as an incentive as we move forward for additional attraction or attracting other businesses as we move forward. So, all right. So with that, so that project in reference to the EDA grant, that should be in the final stages as of this week. So is it already 100% complete?
Should be by the end of the week. By tomorrow evening, you'll have a more thorough report from our engineers on this project.
Okay.
But we have a meeting weekly to discuss its progress. And so as far as the drain improvements and whatever it entailed on our end with EDA, we should be bringing that to a close by the end of this week.
Mayor, we may be looking at a couple more weeks. There's a couple of things. Ms. Beaz was working with them earlier today, which involves sidewalks that need to be set up by that main Rattler Boulevard. And
That's
so they're looking at those details. We should know more by tomorrow.
Okay.
But we're basically winding down and wrapping everything up.
Thank you, Mr. Perez.
So Ms. Guillen, just here, just under total revenues, page 49, I see a difference from last year of 1,106,000 to 2 million this year.
Yes, sir. So we're projecting a little over $1 million in sales tax revenue. And as I said earlier, we're bringing in close to another $1 million in certificates of obligations. Those have already been approved by the EDC.
Okay. That's the main difference there. Okay.
Correct.
All right. Well, let's keep on that project. Obviously, it continues to move, and you see the progress on a daily basis. As I know, they were laying concrete today, and people are excited about that project. And Of course, it's still in the process, and as we continue to move through this global pandemic and continuing to promote our economic basis and while maintaining health and wellness of our community. So I know it's been a challenge, but nonetheless, thank you, Mr. Cruz and Ms. Guillen, for continuing to have in mind the continued projects that we need to make sure come to fruition. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any questions from Ms. Guillen, from commissioners, or anything related to EDC?
Does this have to do with Main Street also, Mayor?
No, Main Street is,
Yes, sir. It's part of this budget.
it's part of this budget that mainly was under what section?
Page 51, Mayor, on the Main Street enhancement.
Yes.
Why was it cut so much?
So, Commissioner Jones, what we have done in this budget is we have reduced some of our expenditures in the EDC budget, which also includes the Main Street, to make room for our incentive payment that we are due to the development and the retail project. So in doing so, we reduce the business grants, and that's where you're going to see the Main Street enhancement grant reduced, because funds in that budget line item include your facade grants or your commercial revitalization grants. And so that's where you see a reduction. What I've done is I've made an equal reduction in the grants where we once awarded up to 5,000. We are now awarding 2,500, and we are making it a 50-50 match so that we're able to leverage more of our funds. And that's where you see the reduction in Main Street enhancement grant. There is still money that is left there for your beautification projects that has remained untouched. So the only thing we did scale back was on the grants, the grant programs.
I know, we are getting together Friday, yeah, because I have issues with this.
Yes, sir. I'll also add that we have, give me just a second. While we reduced in grants across the board to businesses, we maintained the beautification funds and walking tour project. And if we are granted, we will also add a little over $100,000 for a sidewalk improvement project downtown. So we're kind of focusing on the beautification projects of the Main Street. And as far as your advertising dollars go, that pretty much remains about the same on the Main Street. And so we're not expected to make much of a change in that particular budget. But we can discuss it in more detail on Friday if you wish.
I just, I wanted to sit down with you, basically bring it up on Friday, because, I want to work on facades a lot this coming year, and hopefully the EDC board we can be able to focus on getting that Mexico Cafe corner completed. I don't like to leave projects started. We need to finish that up, and over there with Joe, Mr. Hinojosa, I've had a couple of conversations with them on trying to get a wall up and trying to get some murals going across the street from the old cemetery there. So, and we'll sit down and talk about it, but hopefully we can be able to work something out.
Thank you,
And
sir.
that is something we need to look at. I know the facades are excellent because we need to, of course, beautify the area. When it comes to some of the businesses that we have funded there, I know some of them prior to COVID, we were funding them, but yet they were not sustainable. So how we look at those grants moving forward with some of those businesses that we end up financing or at least providing some grants, but somehow they're not sustainable. So that's just something we need to look at moving forward. When it comes to the facade, well, the facade stays, right? I mean, once you beautify that, then that stays. But when it comes to the businesses, I know we've had something, and maybe something we can look into as far as moving forward when it comes to grants pertaining to businesses and the structure of businesses. So again, I'm not saying we're not going to do it, but just revisit how we.
Yeah, I'm just saying, man, I know we have some new businesses and new places that, you know, that are coming into the city, and we do want to focus on bringing in new jobs to the city, but at the same time, we can't neglect our historical downtown.
No, I agree with you. And we haven't, that's why we're nationally recognized, and we have for the last 3 years. Thank you, because obviously it's made a big difference to be nationally recognized as a Main Street program, and we have 3 consecutive years. It's bodes well for what the commission is doing and what the Main Street people are doing, and the boards and everyone that's involved with that. So
yeah, it's because of COVID, you know, we haven't done anything, you know, this year. But at the same time, I'm not talking about pumping in hundreds and thousands of dollars. I'm just trying to be consistent on trying to do something that is visible so the residents can see that our downtown is not being neglected.
And I agree, and that's why we're going for the fourth year in a row to be recognized as nationally recognized downtown area and historical area, and continue those projects and improvements. So absolutely.
And Commissioner, there has been plenty of private investment into the downtown area that has contributed to its beautification. Not everybody goes through for a grant, but we do recognize their contributions to the downtown area. And we report this to the state on a quarterly basis so that they know what level of contributions are being made privately without any public funds. But as I mentioned earlier, there is a sidewalk project that had been discussed earlier in the year, and we have to discuss as well on Friday. But we hope to bring a public project that is going to enhance the downtown and provide the walkability that our Main Street coordinator is looking for in the downtown area, which is why we're maintaining beautification funds, we're maintaining our walking tour funds, and hopefully adding some funds for downtown sidewalks. Now, we've had some success in cleaning up some of the downtown areas as well. We are reducing that to some degree because we recognize that we have higher ticket projects going on this fiscal year. We've talked about it for a very long time, that we would be operating lean when the time came and these investments actually kicked off with us having to pay into these incentives. And so this is the time. So I've creatively gone back to our budget to see how we can keep everything without sacrificing a lot of the legwork we have done and progress we have made.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions about the EDC and where we're headed with this for next budget cycle? All right. Thank you, Ms. Guillen.
Thank you very much, Mayor, Commissioners.
Okay, now we've got the fire department. Mr. Muniz, are you on?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Chief.
Hello, Chief.
Morning, good afternoon.
What page, Mayor?
It is page 30. Page 30.
Yes. That what you're looking at is the projected new public safety building that we're looking at. That has a combination of 36,869 square feet. 12,000 of that belongs as fire department, and 7,000 is that is joint with 17,340 for the police department. It's going to be a building for both those staff. We have this drawing, we got it from the Warren Group, Mr. Lord Warren. He's been kind enough to work with us as far as design, to make the design. He's one of the persons that, we've been talking to as far as helping us out with this particular building. Any questions on that particular building?
It looks great. And we can already envision it. Question's gonna be where, and that's something we can proceed and have a conversation on.
Yes. And the next slide you have is the Aerotruck that we're looking into purchasing with a CO that we got. It's a 107-foot ladder truck. It does have 500 gallons on it, but the top speed is 68 miles, like I said. It has on it 68 miles an hour. It can fully accomplish 6 firefighters in it, and it can reach a story of above 5 stories, building of 5 stories. If a building comes in, it has the capability to reach to the roof on that. We've been working on getting it worked down on the price. We did go down on it from the original price of $1,035,000, which was back in January 3rd. That was the original price when they brought it down to $820,000. Once I made a negotiation with the person that was going to give us a truck, with St. Martin Fire, they're the ones that, we talked to them about providing a pumper. And basically what you have there in front, it's a 1,000-gallon water tank. It's a pumper. It accommodates 4 firefighters. And that's basically a value of $254,000, given it to us basically for free for the amount that he went down, original price on it. All this, it was work on it. It's going to take about 13 months to generate it, because it's going to be from scratch. So that what you see there is just a model what it will look like if we do purchase those trucks. Any questions on those trucks?
They look very, very.
Much needed. Yes.
Yes, I mean that's equipment that's been needed for some time, and we need to get it. Absolutely.
Yeah, and what you see the next slide, that's we're going to discuss that tomorrow. It's going to be in a grant that Frank DeMartin approached me on. This is an off-road fire truck. It's can have a 1,500-gallon water tank, and it has a 30-gallon foam tank, and it's much needed brush truck. And it can also be used for our it's a high-profile vehicle. It can also be used for floods and stuff, because we basically need these type of trucks for rescues and stuff like that as well. Again, it's a grant. It's a $500,000 grant. This particular model goes about $430,000. But we have added fixtures to it, and that's fully loaded. But there is a match of $5,000. But like I said, that we'll be discussing tomorrow on the city meetings agenda.
How much is the matching?
This particular truck is over $430,000.
Yeah, but the matching, what is it?
The match is $5,000.
Oh,
it's $5,000 no matter what. It's a $5,000. If it was a $500,000 truck, it's $5,000. But it's $5,000 either way match. So we obviously loaded it. We added some SCBAs into this package, so it can, just so we can have that amount. We have a good chance in getting it, as far as what I was told. But it's a waiting game. We won't find out until almost towards the end of this year.
And Mayor and Commissioners, this just came up. This is part of what Hollis, Rutledge and Company do for us. They're always on the lookout for opportunities, and this is a perfect example.
Wow.
Well, whatever we need to do to, of course, the submittal of grants, absolutely. Let's maximize those opportunities as much as we can.
Sure thing, yes.
Because of course the need is there. We have a need, and it's time to keep fulfilling those needs as we continue this year and next year, and so.
This would actually replace one of the vehicles, huh?
Well, the other ones, the Freightliner will replace both of the trucks, the aerial and the Freightliner will replace the 2 that we have. One of the oldest models we have is a 95 Freightliner. and we'll be looking into maybe selling that off because it's real old already, and it's already. I mean, we still use it from time to time when our primary pumper, which is an 03 model, needs a mechanic shop or needs to get things repaired. We use that as a primary. But now with these two, well, basically with the trucks that we're getting, they're just going to be basically covering up for those trucks if needed.
Would you explain the difference between this off-road fire truck and the, what is that, pumper truck?
Well, the difference is obviously they have capabilities, and they showed the video on these trucks. These trucks are powerful. They can knock down obviously trees if you hit it. They can knock down trees. That's how powerful they are. It does have over 330 horsepower in the engine. The capabilities, like I said, it's 1,500 gallons. That basically is going to be more than what we have in our pumpers. So it carries a lot of water. And of course the agility of it. It does in all types of terrains. It's real good, and of course for flooding, we can look into using it for flood. Going out rescuing, you can use that truck for sure, as well.
Well, I see it as a win-win situation here.
Well, if the match is 5,000, well, hopefully we can make that happen. So whatever we need to do to enhance our opportunities to get awarded that grant, then let's see what we can do.
Yes. Any more questions, sir?
Okay, so any questions on the presentation from commissioners? Anything there before we get into the budget? No? Okay, so let's start with the page 30, I mean, and the permanent salaries. Did we hire someone? Did they go up? I mean, what? I see a difference from 513 to 549 in permanent salaries. What was the difference there?
I believe we added a couple of cycles in the pay cycle because we were falling behind. And as far as the pay, we were actually in 5 weeks to 6 weeks behind on the pay period. And we caught up with using 2 cycles cut up. So basically we're down to 4. So we added that extra cycle on there plus some raises that we did get. I believe that was the difference. I guess Mr. Cantu can best.
Yeah, if you may, Mayor, what was happening with the fire department, it was, for example, if they hired somebody, the new employee wouldn't get a first paycheck until like 6 weeks later. So they basically would have to work 6 weeks before they get their first paycheck. What we did this year is we went ahead and paid them an extra pay cycle. And the way they work their pay cycles is different than our regular payrolls for everybody else. They have pay cycles. They call them pay cycles, where one paycheck they get 1 cycle, the other paycheck they get 2 cycles. So what we did in December is we went ahead and we tried to catch them up a little bit, at least 2 weeks. So what they did in December is that they got two straight paychecks that were 2 cycles. Like that cut them up a little bit. We were trying to squeeze another one this year. We couldn't. So what we're doing is we're budgeting for another one this coming year, and that hopefully with that they can be caught up and they'll be like a normal employee. They work and after 2 weeks they get their first paycheck. They won't have to go a month and a half to get their first paycheck.
You're working on that. Okay. The other thing, Chief, under item 448 under vehicle repairs, are you anticipating a lot less in repairs? Because we went from 32,000 to 21. So are we anticipating that much less in repairs or?
Well,
Mayor, we did there is we pretty much went with averages to what they spend on the last 5 years. I know last year we gave them 32,000, but this year they're only projected to spend 16,000. The year before they spent 21. I know the year before that they spent 30, so that brought them up a little bit. But the year before that they spent 19, so their average right now is 21, and that's what we did.
Averages across a 5-year span, let's say. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Any other points on there for the fire budget for commissioners? Anything that stands out? All right. Well, going back to the these new this type of equipment and vehicles, absolutely, and definitely looking forward to that public safety building, which will go a long way as far as housing our fire and police and several other departments as well. And of course, this added equipment that there's a need, obviously, when it comes to that fire truck that has multiple levels. And you said including up to 5 stories, which we're going to have buildings here in Rio Grande City that'll be 5 stories. So we need to prepare for that and have the equipment available should there ever be a need for that. So thank you, Chief.
Oh, no, and another note on the CO, we do also have a 45,000 for equipment, much needed equipment that we mentioned. It's also in the CO included, and it's also to help out with more equipment that we do desperately need.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. For commissioners, any questions for Chief before he's done for the day? All right. Well, thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. Your time and thank you, sir, for keeping us safe.
Thank you.
So next one up is Parks and Rec. What's the first slide we got there, Ms. Garza? Okay, on the Parks and Rec area, I'll have Frank, Mr. Aguia talk about his budget in a second. But what you have here is we've been discussing the building of a structure for boys and girls. So we're looking at a proposed 5,600 square foot building. We just set up a mock-up version of what possibilities are out there in the current Basilio Park. Number one would be the optimum place for a location for a building. Obviously, that would be looking at property that doesn't belong to us, but it's tied to our parking lot. So we're still working on that. The other 2 options, which is the number 2 and number 3, are within the park. Obviously, number 2 would be the next best, and number 3 obviously is further out to the east side of the park. So we're still working on the location, but just be aware we have $784,000 designated for a Boys and Girls Club building or structure.
You know, I like number 2, actually. Number 2, but of course, we'll see what options come in, but 2 does not look like a bad option either, considering everything is within easy access to what we want. Because keep in mind, the Boys and Girls Club, we do want to have the facilities for recreational. And of course, once we get through this pandemic and children are able to get back and congregate, as well as adults, then we'll be able to have that accessibility to the recreational areas and physical activities within the park. So I like that idea.
The number 2, the only thing there, we were trying to minimize disrupting any other structures. And I think there's a couple of little, I don't know, picnic tables and little, that they have a cover on them that we would be removing, but it is an option.
Okay.
Any questions on the Boys and Girls structure?
When do you think we can start timelines anticipating the?
We're preparing for putting out for requests for proposals. So that's the first thing we have to go out with, so we can get competitive bids. Once we get them back, then it's a matter of the developer or the construction company and how quickly they can get it done. But we'll be ramping up pretty soon and putting a public notification out for bids.
Okay. Definitely much needed. Well, for young people and the benefits that they receive from having these type of structured activities Can't say enough, of course, once we get through this global pandemic, of course.
Correct.
On the, are we done with that section, Mr. Perez?
Yes, sir. So now we have Mr. Aguirre for the details on this budget.
So on the details, what are we looking at? Did we hire somebody new? What happened there under permanent salaries, 147 to 173? Difference there. Is it under the?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners.
Hello?
On that one, it would be, we got a transfer employee from the water department.
Okay,
And he
That-
came aboard. He's been a great asset to our department so far.
okay. And it's already it's an added transfer, so that was included as part of this salary.
Yes,
Okay. And it's been working out, and you say it's been an excellent transfer there.
yes, sir.
Okay.
Great employee.
On the part-time salaries, what's the difference there? We 13,000 to 24.
And which one's that one, Mayor?
On the second item, is that it says
That's,
part-time
that's-
salary?
Yeah, part-time and temporary salaries. Mr. Aguirre said that they're expecting a lot more games, a lot more students signing up for all the sports, football, basketball. So they're gonna need a lot more officiating and a lot more coaching on the summer tracks and footballs and whatnot.
Okay. All right. And then is it also the vehicle repairs? Are you anticipating additional costs for vehicle repairs for this coming year, Mr. Aguirre?
Well, on that one, I spoke to Mr. Perez and Mr. Cantu about it. I mean, we got two trucks so far. Both of them are close to 2,000, over 200,000 miles. I was requesting one new vehicle
Okay.
for this year.
On the, so going back to repairs, is that something that we need to, I've been noticing that under repairs, is there something we need to do there, Mr. Perez, under repairs and cutting the cost on repairs, or do we need to have our own mechanic or what's?
Mayor, we just got a list of all the fleets for the city, and I sent that out to a lady that reached out to us. Basically, what they do is they do an analysis of how much old the vehicle is, and they already know how much repairs it takes depending on the year of the vehicle. So she's gonna do an analysis for us, and maybe she would be able to save us some money there. I know most of the vehicles that the city owns are old vehicles. They just haven't been replaced for the longest time. We wouldn't want to replace all of them at the same time because obviously we can't afford it. But like Mr. Perez was mentioning, we need to try and budget for at least maybe 3 or 4 vehicles be replaced every year. That way we're not stuck in having old vehicles that pretty much end up taking a lot of repairs on them. So that's why our repairs are so high right now. Most of the vehicles are really old, over 100,000 miles, and most of them.
And that would be something to definitely do, is every year have this mindset that we'll be replacing, let's say 3 or 4 vehicles, different departments, but every year have that in mind. Okay, this year it's 3, 4, 5 vehicles, next year another 3 or 4, and because you're right, there's no way we can purchase them all at once. But if we get into a system to where every year we're replacing 3 or 4, then eventually, of course, that makes a big difference. So let's see what we can do there regarding that, because obviously it's much needed.
Yeah,
Mayor, we're taking a similar approach with computers. We're running into situations with older computers, so we've sat down with our IT, with Juan, and talked about how we can come up with a refresh process that we can afford and maintain, because you can't just go replace everything all at once.
Correct. And every year have that same concept. And obviously for every department, that's something we need to do
Right.
that's manageable on a yearly basis, and it's already scheduled.
Correct.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Aguirre, or commissioners for Mr. Aguirre?
Yes, Mayor, one issue to take into consideration is the county park. That place, I believe, has been closed, and the fields have been deteriorating. I wanted to ask Parks and Rec if they had, or you, Mr. Perez, if they have, league has contacted you in regards to using our facilities for this coming year.
The contact I got was indicating that I needed to submit a formal request that I could do that, to take it over. I know it's a viable park that can be brought back to life. I think we even talked about the boys and girls. The only concern would be we would have to put monies into it to get it cleaned up and up to date. So, and it wouldn't be usable right away.
That's why I mentioned it, Mr. Mayor. That happens. We might have to adjust this budget, but just something to consider right now. That park might be available in the future.
Correct.
If we're gonna plan to see if we can take over it or take over the activities that go on in that facility.
Okay.
Mr. Perez had a question about that, about parks. Don't we collect fees for parks anytime a new development comes up for approval? And where's that money at?
That would be a Milan question. I believe we do. Mr. Milan, are you on?
Yeah, well, we do.
Yes, sir.
We set aside. Last time I submitted the financial report to the commission was I think that account has like $70,000 in it. It's got a separate account for itself, for just for parks.
Okay, could that money be used to bring that other park to life if we do end up getting it or taking it over?
I would assume we could.
Okay, well then let's consider that. I think that would be a good thing for the city to do. I think that park needs a lot of attention, and that if we are able to take over, I mean, I'm not saying that we have to, put a lot of money into it initially, but maybe have a 3 to 5 year plan to where we can bring it back to life. I think we would get a lot of use out of it, as long as we get a long-term lease, or to where we can at least, whatever money we put into it can, at least we can have that commitment from. I believe that property belongs to the school district, if I'm not mistaken. But have long-term commitments so that we can at least invest money into it, and of course be of use for the whole community.
So that park belongs to the school, or is it the county's?
The school.
My understanding was
school.
The school, yes.
Okay.
Well, Mayor, Frank, have you looked into, because we've had the property behind the city hall. What is it? 46, 48 acres? How much it is? We have any plans on doing something with it, adding a soccer post, volleyball, doing something? We got to start someday with it.
I know we're gonna start with soccer first. We're gonna buy some goalposts. So I talked to Hector about it to clean it up, so we could start moving on it.
I agree, Mr. Yee. I think that we can do a lot of the work in house, especially on that open land behind the city hall. I think we can start with a walking trail, have the maintainer out there to scrape some, a little trail or something, and then start creating some soccer fields. I think there's a great need for at least, soccer. I know there's a lot of kids that are everywhere. You see them all over town, and I think that would be a prime location for a bunch of soccer fields and walking trails.
I'll get with Hector on that.
Great. Then those are excellent plans moving forward for Parks and Rec. The potentiality of having an additional park as 2 additional areas, including soccer fields and, as you mentioned, walking trails. And that's an ideal location here. So prime time. And maybe that's something that we can move on. Any type of solar lights would be ideal there. But I guess when it comes to beautifying, that's a different topic altogether. But moving on from Parks and Rec, any other questions so we can? No? All right. Thank you, Mr. Aguirre, for your time, sir. Appreciate it. And thank you for all the work that you're doing, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Next up, we got the planning department, Mr. Milan.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. First of all, you have on your screens the sample city of Fairfax. That's what the proposed zoning map might look alike. This obviously zoning encourages the most appropriate use of the land, and also for health and safety, general welfare of the community. I'm working with Bagley and Associates and Javier Cervantes from the city of Harlingen to work on the proposed zoning map for the city. Next screen would be the drainage master plan. Obviously, master drainage plan helps eliminate and reduce flood risk for property owners and businesses and maintain safe evacuation routes. The proposed master drainage plan is going to get the help from Rio Delta Engineering. They're going to provide administrative surveying, drafting, and services. Also a topographic survey of the city. And they're going to also provide calculations for the post-development flows for the 10, 25, 50, and 100-year storm events. On the next screen would be the Thoroughfare Plan. Obviously, it has two purposes: provide mobility and access to the principal roads. Again, Rio Delta Engineering is going to provide the aerial surveys, the proposed Thoroughfare Plan, standard construction cross-section details for the various street and road classifications. And again, it's going to provide the final plan for council adoption.
Mr. Milan, if I may add, Mayor and Commissioners, just keep in mind, the start of the new 755 connector that was just finished not too long ago. Obviously, that's going to be extending to Hospital Road, eventually going to end up in Loma Blanca. Once that part that goes to Hospital Road is it's already in the works, we will need to look at, as a city, to have connectors or planning connectors, and acquiring properties, planning for all of this now is a lot cheaper than doing it after those areas are developed. So keep that in mind.
That is correct. And also, as you can see already in the Thoroughfare Plan, you see some of the work has started by private enterprise. The connection to Alvarez Road by Eisenhower Heritage Development is started that project also. And of course, you see the Lomas area, the Embassy, and 755 also. And of course, the future TechSat connections. Do you have any questions on the budget also? I'll let Ms. Veas talk about the kennel facility.
Go ahead, Ms. Veas, and then we'll come back to the budget.
Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Okay. So we currently now have a kennel that has 11 kennels. 3 of them are for to hold dogs that have been involved in dog bites. The plan is to add 18 more kennels in an area where, when the animal control officers bring in the animals, they will be able to clean the dogs down. Sometimes they're matted with old injuries and dry blood and some mud. So they'll be able to clean them down. And those kennels that are adjacent to that wash area will be a quarantine area. There they will be dewormed. They will also be given the shots for parvo the kennel cough and get them with antibiotics. This is in hopes of getting them to a stage where they can become adoptable. What we're trying to do is go for a no-kill kennel and therefore open the site for more grants. The area will also include a cat area. We also have some cats that do come in and they require different type of kennels or cages. And we sometimes get female dogs that are ready to have their litter. And we're kind of going to have like a little maternity ward, a kennel that will be constructed in a way that when they're born, they won't go out and die in the sun or in the heat or in the cold. The kennel expansion will also include a clinic. A contract with a veterinarian will come in and do the spay and neuter for dogs and cats there. The plan is to start on a small scale of possibly 100 dogs, 100 cats, and then working with a fee schedule where it makes it affordable and a small budget of maybe $5,000, $6,000 from the city, and the rest would be through grants and, of course, the participation of the citizens. And that would make it affordable. They will not have to go out into the valley to get the spay and neuter on the animals. We have found out through the year that we have quite a bit of animal cruelty cases, and we're trying to work on getting ordinances to address those cases that fall between the gray areas of cruelty and neglect, abandonment, abuse. Normally under the penal code, the cruelty cases will go to the law enforcement, but some of them don't reach to that level. And we're trying to, we're going to be moving forward with an ordinance to help police, animal control officers, and municipal court to go after owners that just do not care for their animals and let them get ill to a point that they're almost at their deathbed there. So the kennel, we're looking at a cost of $160 to $180. We hope to continue with the expansion as the programs continue with the dog park, some possible livestock corrals, in an area where we can have group presentations and trainings for staff and other cities that they can train some of their officers in animal control tactics. So the kennel, it's going to be a wonderful addition. We have a lot of support from organizations. We have organizations that want to volunteer to assist with walking the dogs, bathing the dogs, and just coming to be part of the service that the city has to offer the city. Any questions on the kennel expansion?
Just a comment, Ms. Baez. I think it's an excellent idea, and I think we're long overdue with this type of project. And like you said, I think there's a lot of volunteers, a lot of people out there that are animal lovers that are willing to volunteer, like you said, to walk the animal, bathe them, to whatever the case may be. But I think this is long overdue, and I'm glad to see it come to fruition. A question for you: do we already have like a vet lined up, or a hospital veterinarian, that's going to come and help us with the spay and neutering?
We have reached out to several vets in the valley, and we have stated, what we're looking at. They are particular as to what the clinic will have, since it is a medical facility, and they would have to include it as part of their insurance and liability. I mean, we're talking about stainless steel beds and proper disposal of the tools that they use and the materials that they dispose of. So we're working on that. We have had, through Happy Paws, some rescue organizations up north that can help us with those costs to outfit it. And the goal is to go for those grants to pay the vet. That way, it'll make it easy for them to come to Rio Grande City and do this at least once a month.
Okay.
The cost for an average cost for a dog spay for a female is about 65, 70. Obviously, if they're overweight, it'll cost more. There is a waiting period, kind of like a recovery, and we will have volunteers to kind of be looking and caring for those animals while they're recovering from their surgery. And it's about 4 hours, and then the owners can pick them up.
So how many total kennels would we have, Ms. Bass? With the
So
additional?
we will have 29, sir.
29? Okay. Excellent plan. Let's see how we can make that happen. And like you said, reach out for any type of grants and things that we can reach out for. And of course, the volunteers, because we're going to need that as well when you're considering the expense of animal control. And when you're looking at, and correct me if I'm wrong, Rio Grande City is the only city that has an animal control department in Stark County.
Yes, sir. The officers go through several trainings. The facility actually goes through a state inspection, and it passes it. So we are certified and licensed through the state of Texas.
Right, and what I'm saying is, how does that translate for issues that might occur outside city limits, or individuals coming into the city and dropping off animals here and then becoming our burden? So those are things that we need to make sure that we address moving forward, considering that we're the only city with an animal control department, and how that factors in. But those are things that obviously we need to continue to educate the public and be aware and make it a point that we are looking out for, as you mentioned, these ordinances, that we need to make sure that we have something in place to address those individuals that do not take care of their pets or are being cruel to their pets or whatnot. So, but definitely, once you have something in place, bring it to the commission and see how we can start moving forward on any of those ordinances.
Yes, so we'll be working with the police department to make sure that there's something that they can enforce and be able to prosecute through the municipal court.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Bass.
Thank
Is there
you.
anything on Mr. Milan?
Yes, sir. Yes,
All right,
ma'am.
so just continuing on page 39 for the salaries, did we add additional members or staff? Because we went from 315 to 350 under
That
total.
is correct, Mayor. There's a proposed new clerical position here at the permits, answering the phones and taking care of people. Due to COVID, the plan department was no exception to the problems, and obviously the phone is nonstop ringing, and this is constituents that we need to take care of. I am glad to say that permits, have the numbers have it seems to be increasing now with the new development, and as you can look around town, there's new homes, new businesses, basically in all parts of town. There's inspections called, there's permits to be taken care of, issues, concerns, and also in addition to obviously your regular garage sales and what have you, permits to the citizens. So therefore, I believe it's time that we have a secondary permits clerk taking care of the community.
Okay. Well, in considering more so than anything, especially during a global pandemic, how the code enforcement has been critical, a component of addressing it because of going out to our businesses and to the community at large to address some of the protocols that we had in place and obviously orders and everything that we had, emergency orders, and how to make sure we continue to fight this global pandemic. And that's a critical component. So, and the work doesn't stop, right? I mean, it does not stop. So, but thank you, Mr. Milan. Any questions for Mr. Milan from the commissioners, or any points on the proposed budget? No? Well, thank you, Mr. Milan. Thank you, Ms. Beas, for your presentation.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mayor, real quick, Mayor. Mr. Milan, I know that I've spoken to you after the tropical storm that came through, in reference to the sign ordinance. You know, I don't know if you noticed, Mayor, that some of those signs that have gone up are a hazard now. Some of them are tilted. I brought that up to Mr. Milan's attention when I bumped into him, and I just wanted to see if you were where are you at right now with the sign ordinance?
That is correct. We can bring it up, to the commission again, and maybe even propose new changes. Obviously, we did notice after the hurricane, obviously that is part of also the burden of work here, from vector control to signage. You got actually street signs in itself. We have already fixed over 50 signs all over town. In addition, obviously, to the private signage, like the Telemundo sign by the corner of Flores and Main Street. Obviously, there's some tilted signs already all over town that we need to reevaluate before, and obviously put the owners on notice as to whether to fix them or remove them. Because again, the last thing we want is, we've seen actually more professional signage fall down. I don't know if you all recall in 2002, I believe, one of the Whataburger franchises failed, and obviously this is a liability for the city also for not noticing the owners for proper maintenance. So therefore, I believe it's time to reevaluate our sign ordinance.
Mr. Milan, but isn't that zoning going to take care of all the sign ordinances and all these issues we've had in the past? Because enforcement issues, obviously, we cannot enforce because there's zoning in place. So obviously, with the zoning being done, it'll alleviate, or it'll, I guess, address some of the concerns that we have now with the signs and all the other issues we've had in the past.
Yes, and that would take care of, obviously, as far as location and sites. But also, we need to also have a little stronger take on the code compliance on the maintenance of those signage, because again, the last thing we want is for those things to start flying around.
Well, thank you, Mr. Milan. Appreciate it for your time, effort, and obviously the work that you all do. Vector control. I mean, those mosquitoes are huge, and
like I said, I'm sorry, we're still taking care of the aftermath of the hurricane. So vector control calls are still coming in, and obviously these are calls that are entered to our permits department. Signage is still being fixed, which obviously we ask the community to let us know if we're missing one. And again, of course, we got the miscellaneous like signs falling apart or falling down, or even private enterprise, signs.
Yeah. Thank you.
I just want to add, Mayor, that there's also an animal control position being proposed in this budget for planning.
Oh, so an additional. Well, if we continue, of course, with the kennels, again, going back to if we're the only animal control department, then we are going to get some of that layover from some of the other areas. So it's going to happen. Now, something to consider moving forward is if any other departments outside the city or taxing entities outside the city require our services, then at some point we should consider sending them a bill for their services. Because we cannot sustain it and just incur all the cost ourselves. whether it's at the county or whether it's other areas outside the city. And if we have that issue, and I don't know if we have it, but if we do, that's something to start considering too.
If I may, Mayor, yes, we have had those situations, especially calls from police department, sheriff's department, or even justice of the peace. Maybe they arrest somebody and they so happen to have a dog with them, especially vicious dogs. So we have to basically help on location, and this is obviously the constituents' money. So in the past, the judges or the police, they have managed to compensate us in a way to offset the costs.
Well, I mean, just something to consider that because once we take a dog, there's a lot of additional costs associated to it, correct? And is that overburdening us? But look into all that, and if it's something that we can still manage without having to, then okay. But if it's becoming a burden to us, then we need to start looking at possible alternatives as to how it's funded. But again, just an idea, something as we're, especially as we continue to grow as a city, and when it comes to animal control, there is a large expense associated to it. So it's important that we start funding it correctly and have the proper scale and funding source to make sure that it does not become a burden to the city. And I'm talking about outside city limits or situations of that potential situation. Thank you, Mr. Milan.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners.
Next up, we have Police Department. Chief Castillo.
Yes, sir. I'm right here.
Hello, Chief.
Hey, how y'all doing? With y'all, I know that the fire chief mentioned the new public safety building, and this is a conceptual site plan. The building is put together by the two diagrams that we put together, the chief and I, and we had been working on that for a while. Miss Laura Warren from the Warren Group put this together fairly quick, and we do have a plan that shows both facilities together. What you see in front of you says public safety. That would be the main entrance to both buildings, and it's modernized to the point that even with this current situation with COVID, it kind of addresses some of those issues as you walk in. So that keeps the public away from the personnel, and as the walkway that you see in red, that could be a memorial, and the bricks could be laid in and out depending on what the fire department and the police department would want to do with that in the future. Currently, I have 44 employees at the police department, and this facility has an office space for each and every one of them. And some of the shared space that the chief mentioned is the weight room, some of the restroom areas, and you have shower areas. You have a training room that both agencies can utilize, and it could be used for other things that that the city would want to utilize that for in the future. This does come with Celiport for the back of the building, and also with several cells that the plan at this point can be changed depending on how much we can get out of what the cost of the building and how much is available. The idea would be to get several holding cells, and maybe some of the costs can be put back into the facility with those cells. I know that the federal government does have to get contracts with municipalities and sheriff's office to that could set a little bit of the cost of the funds for the building. So this is what it is. It's not set in stone. It does set the diagram that breaks up the building, sets on 5.58 acres, and is the way it's built is made for expansion. So this is what we're looking at. It can be changed and tweaked. It's not set in stone, as I said, for us at the police department, but it's modernized and looks really nice. So If y'all have any questions on the plan, or you want to see anything else on it, I can answer those, or we
How many
to the other
cells are
documents.
we looking at, Chief? I mean, what are we looking at? How many cells would be viable? And if so, I mean, what would be an ideal number? Because when you're looking at a funding source, I mean, there is funding available as far as housing potential federal inmates and all. How does all that work?
Well, you'd have to get a contract with the federal government, and the cells. I think you would have to at least have a minimum of 12 cells. Like I said, this is set up for future expansion. If that were to be the case, that's something that we have to work out with the numbers and see what we could do with the amounts that are provided and the certificates of obligation. So I think the minimum would be 12. The diagram that we have here is we have 6, but this facility is big enough to expand for the future, because when I have a new personnel coming in, and we'll be close to 48, and that will expand as the city grows and the time starts to go forward. So I think we left some room for expansion. But I think that adding more cells to it, I'd say maybe 12 to 15 would be the ideal number. It's just how much it costs that we need to look into to get to that point.
Well, I would go with 15. I mean, if it's something that, because when you're looking at the construction of those additional cells later, obviously the cost is going to be a lot more then. So if we can already include it now, and it's something viable that we can do, why not take care of it now, especially since these are cells that are going to be bringing in revenues and in a sense paying for itself. So it would be ideal to take care of it now and do it because it's a revenue source. As long as we plan it well in the way we're supposed to, right? And I guess you would do all the homework on that, what it would take to operate cells and reimbursements and all that. Make it as a viable option for us. And in a sense, it would pay for the entire building.
At some point, I just said it would, if it would get to the point, we have to hire some additional personnel and follow state and federal regulations and such. But I don't think that would be a problem, Mayor. And I think get done. We just need to work the numbers and see what we have to do. We already are starting to get some information on that as we speak, so we could be available.
If the commissioners agree, I mean, if we can shoot for 15, and sorry to use that word, right? But 15, maybe that's an ideal number.
Yeah, I think that would be a good idea, Mayor. Also, another question I have for Chief Castillo is, does that price include furniture and I guess computers and all that for that building, or are we looking at another expense?
I need to look into that. I know that that's something that we discussed, but I haven't gotten that answer yet. So that's one of the questions I need to ask also. If that's part of the building. I know that we have some stuff that we currently utilize here at the department already, and it's fairly in good condition. But we just need to know what the setup is going to be. Again, the Warren Group just did this as a courtesy, and they put it together for us. So I don't know exactly what the end of that is going to come out to, or who's going to be working on the facility. That's up to the process. But that's a question that we can ask.
Right. No, it's a big building. It's a beautiful building, but at the end of the day, it needs to be furnished. So we got to find a way to find out if that includes the furnishing, or we need to set money aside, or budget for in the future.
Yeah, that was one of the questions that we had for the chief when we sat down with him about furnishing, and I guess it would have to be something that whenever they go out for procurement, that they add that furnishing in there, because it'd be kind of tough to budget for furniture for a big building like that out of our general fund right now.
And also the relocation of 911, correct?
Yes, I believe that we need to look into that part too. We had checked into it a while back, and they said they would help us out if or take care of that if we moved into another facility. But it would have to be something that we'd have to stay there for a while. There's a lot of equipment that's worth a lot of money.
Okay. Any other questions for Chief? I just saw here on page 28, Chief, our total salaries. So we went down a bit. Did we lose somebody or just what happened?
I think that Mr. Cantu would be able to answer that. I don't know if that's tied into the HIDA part of that or not.
Yeah.
But
part of that is tied to the HIDA. We're not budgeting for HIDA. We don't know what's going to happen with HIDA. You know, last year alone, we were budgeting, I think it was like 30,000. We have to cover, HIDA only covers a certain amount of their salaries. We were covering the rest. That was around 30,000. There's another position in there that was moved over to the municipal court because he works as a security there with the judge when he's having court. So his position got funded from the municipal court, and that pretty much makes a difference in there. Even though they're adding more this time around, but the positions that the chief is adding right now are mostly out of grants. We're only gonna cover like 69,000 for 4 positions that he's gonna be able to add to his department.
On the presentation, Mayor, I don't know if you want me to continue, but we also are looking at purchasing another 2020 Tahoe for the commercial motor vehicle officer. You know, just to give you a little bit of information on that, he has done over 140 inspections to the point that we got to COVID. When it got to COVID, we had to split our shifts due to the way, you know, the uncertainty of what was going to happen. So we had to go to 7/7 and we had to utilize them to do that. But his inspections are up to 2 hours, depending on what he's found or what he hasn't found. And he has to put up a sticker that he did that. And you know, all that gets reported to the state. The vehicle will be fully loaded. It does also carry the weights, so they could check for the weights on the vehicles. And you know, this makes our highway safer and our area safer. I know it got to a point that when he was stopping vehicles, that they had already been inspected, which makes sure that some of these vehicles are safer on the roads. I know that he did put some out of commission because they were a danger to the people in traffic and stuff. But we're gonna have him. The COVID kind of got in the middle of him getting his training for the license and weights part of it. So that should be coming up. But the new vehicle with the wear and tear of the old cars that we have won't sustain that type of time on the road. So we're looking to purchase a new vehicle for him, and that's more or less what you see on the picture. It won't be like that, of course, but it would be a marked unit. If you have any questions on that, I'd be glad to answer those.
Well, the question is mainly on the and that would be all commercial trucks, for example, including the ones with the card boxes that go into Mexico, and sometimes they drive to the middle of town and they have all kinds of papers falling off the trucks, and he addresses those too.
Yes, he does. Yes, sir. You know, the difference would be now if he gets when he gets certified for license and for the weights, actually, not license. You know, he'd be able to wait. You know, to make sure that they're in the proper weight, and you know, those carry hefty fine for people that have overweight. It causes a lot of problems on the road. So that's what we're looking at with that purchase of a new vehicle.
Well, it destroys our roads, right? It destroys our roads, and the cost of having to repave is just extenuating for a community our size. Go ahead.
Going on forward, I know that this has been a question that I've been asked by several of commissioners and you, Mayor, and also Mr. Perez. The encryption for all our radio systems is expensive, and I know that other agencies in our area have looked into it, and some don't want to do it because it does cost a lot of money to get them encrypted. But this would secure communications of sensitive information going out on the police radio, such as somebody having mental issues or somebody having read their information over the radio waves. And you know, with scanners around nowadays, a lot of people have access to what's going on. And the area that we're in right now also gives the criminal organizations a chance to know what we're doing, and helps us conceal a little bit better and keep our officers a little bit safer as to what's going on in the area. So you're looking at an estimate cost of 50 to 60,000, and that's the police department. It's on its own. And I know that Mr. Perez did also talk about maybe encompassing the fire department within that also. So this is more or less what we're looking at to encrypt all our radios. We have over 30 vehicles and over 30 radios that need to get encrypted. So it is expensive. You're looking at $800 to $1,000 per radio, depending on which one they are.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
I agree, sir. I mean, it's coming to the point where we need to do all these things. I don't know if it's me or who.
Well, this will make a difference in what we do. It has its pros and cons sometimes, for the reason that some of the other agencies around us won't be able to listen to us, but we can go around that and see what we can bring him on with, depending on the agency and who wants to come on board. So that's what we got with the encryption. And the last picture is one of our old police cars. Those are a classic, and I wish they made them again like that one. So this is some of the stuff that we're trying to replace. We got these in the police grant. With DPS a while back, and they have high mileage, but this is what we're looking to replace in the future. And I think Mr. Cantu mentioned that program that he was looking into. So that's what we're looking at for the future. So that's my presentation regarding the slides. If y'all have any questions on anything, I'll be glad to answer them.
Just to be clear on those, Mayor, Council, the Tahoe and the equipment that the chief was talking about, the encryption, all those are already included in the CO, so those would come out of the CO's money.
Is that it on the police department? Questions on the budget?
The only question is, and I already answered it. I don't know what's happening with my computer here, but yeah, you already answered. It went down as far as from 1.8 million to 1.7. And then the only other one is dues and subscriptions. It went from 1,000 to 7,300. What's the difference there? Under the same thing under subscriptions, we're adding some additional accounts, or what are we doing?
I think that's what Mr. Cantu was talking about, putting in the items in the right place. But I think he can explain that a little bit better.
Yeah, the dues and subscriptions, basically what they're charging in there is a subscription for their e-force. I'm not exactly sure what that is. If you could probably let us know. And another one is 10,000 for the radios. That's a subscription that we pay every year. So those are the two only items that I have there for dues and subscriptions. But again, it's like the chief said, some of those items were just being expensed to the wrong accounts before. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chief. Any questions for Chief Castillo? No? All right. Thank you, sir. And consider that with this new public safety building that and see how we can maximize particularly the cells and maximize the space to make sure we house everybody there and plan for future expansion. Thank you, Chief. Next, who do we have, Mr. Perez?
Yeah, Mr. Hector with Public Works. I'm going to turn it over to him. He's in my office, so he'll be coming up on the screen.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners.
Herrera,
I
hello.
got this. Here's a little my little presentation for our street improvements.
Okay.
If you have any questions, just ask. Right. I got 17 streets to repave or rehab. If you have any questions, just ask anything you need to know.
So when you say you have these streets, we're looking at paving 17 streets or improving some of those areas, or what are we looking at?
Yes, well, we got some streets that are in bad conditions, and we got some streets that are not paved. So the map there shows the different areas in town, or what? Yeah, the map shows different areas where we have streets that are not paved or streets that are in very bad conditions.
And that includes the brisas, right? I know that was an area that.
Las Brisas is our first priority to start with.
What page are you on, Hector? Or are you sharing the screen for the streets, or is that included in the packet?
That's the next slide. That's the Las Brisas, Cypress Street, Reina Street. Those are streets that are not paved.
Yeah, I don't see the slides. I don't know if you're sharing the screen or not, or Mrs. Garcias sharing the screen for you, but I don't see the presentation. I don't see the slides.
I'm seeing it. Is anybody else seeing it?
I got it. I'm seeing it. How many miles in total are we looking in paving?
Miles, I would need to ask Delta with Julio.
I see we included here the Stephen Science Extension, San Benito Road, Las Brisas, and several others. So this is $1.9 million paving and drainage improvement. So, and when we're looking, have we already submitted the timelines? When are we looking at starting some of these, Mr. Barrera?
Delta Engineering was preparing a request for qualifications.
Okay.
For those streets, and they're gonna I don't know if they're gonna ask for another engineer or themselves.
And just to for the public's interest, I know we're targeting these 17 this year, but going back to the original plan is that every year, I know this year we're doing a little bit more because of the COs, but every year have a couple or several that we have in mind, because when you have 35 miles of streets here in Rio Grande City, there's going to be a need for repaving some of these every single year. So I know we're doing 17. So for those that do not see their streets yet, those are plans that we will have in the future as well, because every year we're going to keep committing to some of the paving or repaving some of these streets, and in some cases paving those ones that are not. But I know this year we've had the opportunity to expand our paving and drainage improvements because of the COs and the projects that we're highlighting.
Yes, that's what I was. I was told to at least put 2 or 3 streets per year. So
because it's an expensive, it's a high expense, but nonetheless we're going to commit to it. And I know this year having 17 of them, that's huge.
It's a lot.
It's quite a bit. So, and people are going to see the significant difference. So good. Let's continue with that.
If I may, Mayor, I think these are only the ones that they're prioritizing first to start off with. I think that their budget on the COs was a little bit over 3 million. So I think this is just part of the list that they're going to work on.
So right now we're looking at 17, but I know there'll be others, but at this point,
Are we working on a timeline?
Part of the RFQ.
It's
Well-
part of the RFQs.
Yeah, Commissioner Jones, when they submit a proposal, they will have to submit a schedule, not only pricing, but a schedule.
Okay. All right.
Hector, everybody's making a wish list, and you know, I drive through 755, the old 755, you know, 2-3 times a day, coming back and forth from the high school. But one thing that I've noticed is that that we need to get you some equipment so you can maintain that levee there at the bridge. I know that we don't have the equipment to cut the grass on those slopes, and I know there's some type of equipment that you can use to cut the grass on those levees. That's something that you might want to look into.
Okay, yeah, that's the one on the bridge on the old 755, right?
Yes, the levee there at the bridge.
Yes.
I know that
Okay.
Fernando, Fernando, like 2-3 years ago, he submitted some sort of a tractor that has the arm.
That one. That's what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
I know Fernando, like 2-3 years ago, submitted something like that, a mower with the extension of the arm.
There's also an attachment that you can put on I believe it's on a backhoe, because of the hydraulics on the arm. But just something for you to look at, Hector.
Yes, I'll look into that. I think John Deere has an attachment but we needed a special tractor for that.
Well, you know, that thing gets to the point where it looks nasty, and
Yes.
it's something that we need to maintain a little bit better.
Okay.
That's all I got, man.
thank you, Commissioner. To Barrera, go ahead and continue, or we?
Okay, this is Embassy Road. This is one of our streets that you can see the alligator patches, alligator street. That's in a very bad condition. And that will go all the way from J&O Elementary School all the way to the entrance of Embassy, and this is you can see the wire match, the concrete on the street on the other slide, not that one. Can you change the slide? On that one, you can see the rebar on the street. Those are some parts that are the rebar, it's exposed, and we need to fix those parts. And there are some other slides that we need to do some retaining walls to beautify the street.
Now, on those, before we pave these streets or repave them, we are taking care of any of the potential leaks or issues with replacement of water infrastructure, so that way we don't have to come back and have to break these streets.
Mayor, both public utilities and Hector got together with Rio Delta, and they went street by street, identifying all utility repair issues that need to be done before Hector comes through and repaves.
Okay. So yeah,
Hector, is there any big infrastructure under Embassy? As far as water and sewer?
Water and sewer, no, I don't think so. Not that I know of, as right now, not that I know of.
Can you resurface the concrete with asphalt?
That should be an engineering problem. I don't think so. I think we need to take out what it's underneath, because what's there, it's already all broken. So I think we need to take off what it's damaged. And we have the other slide there. We have a facility expansion for a public workshop. It's 40 by 100, 4,000 square feet. Somewhere there in the 14 acres, we're gonna see where we're gonna install it. We're gonna talk to Delta Engineering to give us a good plan on a public workshop.
There's no design or anything that you've drawn up, Hector?
Not as right now, but Delta Engineering is they're gonna get us a good plan for it. Any other questions?
Well, thank you, Mr. Barrera. Or anyone else?
Hector, I had a question for Mr. Barrera. There was a gentleman that called me the other day about the street out there by Dr. Margo's property out there. I think it's Birch Street. He said that code enforcement had gone out there, I guess, to try to cite him because he needed to clean it up. But he said that it actually belongs to the city. I'll get you the address so you can look at it. But he said it's already overgrown with mesquite trees and all that, but it's part of a city street or property. And I think code enforcement was thinking it was part of his own personal property. But yeah, I'll get you the address. He said that that street or Cajon actually belongs to the city.
Okay, just give me a call tomorrow, and I'll look into it.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Mr. Perez, in fact, I gave him that address. Did you visit with that gentleman, Mr. Perez? Is he around?
Yes, I actually called him, and so we're supposed to go out there and look at it before the week's over.
Okay. That's the same one, Commissioner Ramirez.
It is? Okay.
Oh, Hector, you still have personnel picking up bags y todo eso around town?
Yes, we still have guys picking up brush.
¿En qué location están ahorita tú, Hector?
Right now, we're to the west side.
¿De San Antonio? Oh.
We're barely starting Los Treviños.
Los Treviños.
Yes.
Okay, so ya hicieron el east side o qué? East of San Antonio, ¿qué?
East side of San Antonio, yes.
Okay.
And from the 17th to the 30th, we'll be to the east side again.
Okay, so I got a couple of calls about baggage, but I saw the notice that was sent to the water department, and I saw the map. That was a good idea. Kind of has a map on the days where y'all are going to be passing to.
EDC help us with that map. It's a pretty good map, and there's a lot of people that really understand it more than the other one that we had.
Yeah, because and I know I've spoken to you in a lot of occasions, and you go and you pick up the branches or the bags, y ya para the following day ya está igual. So yeah, just keep up the good work. I know you're trying to do what you can. With this hurricane that came through, it's a lot of brushes and bags all over town. But people got to understand, that they're going to pass through there on a certain time, and it's they need to bring out their trash, during a certain times, and time it. Try to time it a week before if they're going to clean their house, so they can be able to maintain their property clean. Okay, I know, and I've seen it personally, and I see it, a lot of times, you know, that you guys pass through there and se mira bien limpio todo, and then by 2-3 days, ya está igual.
Yes, in that notice, it says that if you can wait at least two weeks till your schedule is for the truck to go by, at least 2 weeks.
Yeah, but it's a great thing that y'all did with that map, you know, a great job on it, you know, whoever designed it. And
I would like to thank EDC with that map. They help us.
yeah, I did a good job because I've gotten a lot of compliments on it. You know, I saw it. I didn't know it was out there until I saw it on my bill. But great design is pretty much simple and to the point. You know, so people can be able to know when they're going to be passing to their homes.
It's very understandable.
Yeah. Great job.
Thank you, Mr. Barrera. Certainly appreciate it. And keep it up, sir. I know it's a monumental effort when it comes to the department that you're heading. It's a day in, day out, 24/7. The same thing with water in practically every department. But thank you, sir, for the work that you're doing. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for your cooperation. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Perez, let's moving on. I know it's already heading about that time, sir. Commissioner Garza.
The rest of the budgets we can just cut?
Let's go ahead and let's do it a little bit faster, sir. So let's see how we can. It's already going to be 9 o'clock. So all right.
Okay.
What do we have now?
So pretty much from the presentation side, sir, we're done on the major projects. So what I like to do is if you like to go maybe back to the handout that Mr. Cantu gave you, where we have the different funds, and see if we want to start at the top real quick. And if you have particular questions, we can address it by calling up the director. And that might be a little faster or quicker.
What does the commission feel at this time? Do we? All right, so moving on. Let's go ahead.
Okay, where do you want to start? Do you want to target a particular department we're lacking?
We'll come back. Tell you what, let's just come back. Let's see. I have several here. Let's start with, okay, so library. Are we okay with the library? I only see a difference here. Total salaries, it went down a little from 155 to 153. I'm assuming that has to do with I guess either losing somebody, or did we account for that? What's the difference in salary from 155 to 153?
Let me look at that real quick, Mayor.
Yes, yes, Mayor, that is an oversight. I did bring it up to Mr. Perez to see if we can just fix that. So all our salaries, all our clerks will be earning the same.
So go ahead.
Yeah, that's correct, Mayor. Their salaries are actually 155.
Okay. And since we have you on the phone, Ms. Folt, anything you would like to mention aside from your award-winning, countless award-winning library?
Well, no, thank you very much for all you do for us. This is the 30th year that we are preparing library budgets, so we're excited about that. And the only thing for consideration in the future is we do need to start thinking about replacing our AC units at the library. You know, we moved in 2005, and so they're like barely hanging in there.
The AC, okay.
Yes.
Mayor, just to clarify on the salaries, it's actually 153, and the reason that they changed is, I guess, Ms. Norma brought in a new employee for one that she replaced one for one that left, and she started off at the lower rate than what before.
All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Folt. Certainly appreciate your work, and obviously right now during this pandemic, It's a little bit different, the new normal, at least during this time, and see how we can continue to adapt to this new normal. But I'm sure you've always done a good job with that, so thank you, Ms. Volk.
Thank you, sir.
Do we want to jump over to hotel?
Let's go on to hotel.
Hernandez,
From 132 to 78,000.
Yes, I'm here, Mayor, Commissioners. If you have any questions, I know that we had our budget meeting last week.
Okay.
Pretty much, there wasn't major changes from last year's budget to this new budget. We did spend a lot less this year considering that we didn't have a lot of the different events. And then our hotel revenues are down as well. So in consideration of that as well.
Now, to answer that question, Mr. Or see who can answer the question. Just to be clear on it, it appears that our hotels are full, but yet we're not getting the revenues. And does it have to do with tax exemptions? Is that what's happening?
Correct. So basically any individual, whether they're part of a government entity or not, if you're staying at a hotel for longer than 30 days and you no longer have to pay the hotel tax. I spoke to the owner of 2 of the hotels that we have in town. And that's pretty much been the situation, that he's been on contract with some of these government entities who do not pay taxes to begin with. And then once they're past those 30 days, they don't have to pay the hotel tax. And then during last year, he did the remodel of one of the hotels, which is a Holiday Inn. So he wasn't accepting anyone to stay in the hotel during that remodel. So that brought our numbers down as well. And now he's remodeling the other one, the Quality Inn by the Denny's. So that's also affected us as well.
Okay. And so far, I guess I know we had been planning for a function, but at this point with the global pandemic, so we're gonna play it by ear to see what occurs between now and December as far as planning events or activities, and if there's anything else that we can do that falls in line with the current global pandemic regarding events, maybe that's something to consider. And I don't know if there is anything that we can do at this time, obviously.
We're definitely anxious as soon as this pandemic is over to throw the biggest event ever to make up for all this lost time.
Maybe that'll be Christmas of this year. Maybe that's going to be the...
I really hope so. I think the whole town is hoping for that.
Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. Anything else from the commissioners? No? Thank you, Ms. Hernandez. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may add on that one, I was talking to Mr. Perez on it and to Sarah. I know this hotel fund, it built up a pretty good, healthy fund balance in the past, and that's basically because there was no activity on it. Lately, it's been going down every year, just that the taxes haven't been coming in. We've been expensing more than what we bring in, so we can't continue like this for way too long. I mean, their fund balance is gonna expire here in the next couple of years if nothing happens here. This year alone, we're looking at losing $67,000 on it based on the projections of the revenues and expenditures. So it's just one line item for everybody to keep an eye on or keep in the back of your heads, I guess.
Mayor, what I would propose is, I know I had brought one company, but maybe we ought to look at you guys approving and going forward with contracting an auditor that would come in and audit not just hotel, but all our businesses from the tax side. These guys will come in. I think we ought to go out for submittal of quotes and see who can do a better job and the best price. What they do is they won't charge you unless they find monies. So if they come in and they look at all the hotels and there's nothing there, they won't charge you anything on the hotel side. But let's say they go to the retail businesses on the sales tax side, and they do find $100,000 or $200,000 that were missing because they were underreporting. They will collect from that money that they find going forward 4 years. But these are monies that were not coming in to begin with. So it's something to consider that we do an overall audit on all our businesses at no additional cost to us.
Does the comptroller's office already have a branch that would do that?
They do, but they won't just audit any business. They have a program they go by. You can't just call them and say, hey, come and audit the city businesses. They have an audit program. They call it Audit Select, and they identify them based on industry. And so it's up to the comptroller that runs that program to determine what businesses are going to be audited.
Okay. Well, that's something to consider as we're, when it comes to the funding and what you're looking as far as expenditures, maybe that is a good avenue to go into and see what the unofficial or official count is. And that might be an underreporting situation, not necessarily that it's not producing those results. It just might be an underreporting for whatever reasons.
Sure.
But based on what you're telling me, then it's something that it's only if there are monies that are not being accounted for. Those are the ones that they really commission. The commission is based on that.
Yes, sir. So if they don't find any additional revenue coming in, they don't uncover, let's say, incorrect reporting, underreporting, or not reporting at all, it won't cost us anything. But if they do find, for those businesses that they do find additional monies, they will consider based on that increase that they found.
Okay. So moving on to city manager, let's do city manager. What do we have here? Anything, I know we had already done with your contract. Anything else from the commission regarding the city manager, salaries, benefits, other services?
All the budget and the city manager is pretty much based on the contract that was issued to him
Right.
in March. So
Yeah.
from that, all the expenditures in there, they're pretty much just averaged throughout the expense the last 5 years.
Okay. So anything commissioners on the city manager? Okay, so if you go back to 24, page 24, city secretary, permanent salaries, temporary salaries. What's the difference in temporary salaries there, Mr.
So temporary,
Perez? It went from 6,000 to 15,000. What's the
That's
need
just
here?
for the elections this year, Mayor.
Elections.
Okay,
We budgeted last year. We're gonna base it on one location, but since it didn't happen, I know the expenditures that we're looking at right now are much more than what we're anticipating. Also, election expenses, you notice there's $60,000 there. We only budgeted 20,000 last year, but those 20,000 are gonna be expensed this year, and we're still looking probably at another 60,000 just to run the election.
now on those, for example, the election expense, if we just go with John, what's the amount with John versus having to do it on our own? What's the difference in cost?
I know Ms. Garza was looking at it, and she was securing those from him. Were you able to get with John on that, Ms. Garza?
He should have it for me by tomorrow morning, but I know that the amount is significant.
So there's a huge, I mean, there's a huge difference between us going just with John and having him take care of everything versus us doing it on our own.
Yes, sir.
So let's get those figures as soon as we can so we can start making decisions based on the amounts. We'll go from there. Anything else, commissioners, on that one? Page 23 or 24? Okay. Then moving on to 21. So going back to administration, anything there, Mr. Perez? Under page 21, I see a significant difference, 178 to 147 in total salaries for administration, which is a good thing. I'm not, but what's the significant difference? I'm on page 21.
What was that change, Mr. Cantu? I know he's looking for it.
Look at it real quick. We budgeted for an IT person last year. I know there was some plans going on.
Okay.
Christian was set up and Juan, and then they were going to bring somebody else in, but then nothing flourished. So right now we're only budgeting for Juan and no other IT.
Now on that same page, going down under telephone, internet, and cable, I see a drastic difference between last year and this coming year. From 2,200 to 7,560, and then from 2,350 to 10,000. Has it gone up that much?
What it is, Mayor, is last year we didn't budget for it because we had there's a contract that we're under with Time Warner. I thought we could get out of it last year. We can't.
Okay.
Sent the contract over to legal, and we basically have to take it out. I think we end up paying it. If I'm not mistaken, it's March of next year. But we're paying, I believe it's close to $1,500 every month based on telephone and internet. I know Juan's already told us we don't need it. We can pretty much cancel it. That's why I didn't budget for it last year, but this year we still have to budget for it because it's still under contract.
But so we're still using it and we're getting the benefit from it.
It's kind of like a backup only, but I mean the way it was set up when they first got it back in 2015, it was a contract for so long that we just couldn't get out of it. If we get out of it, we're gonna end up paying more than we would just.
Okay. But we will get out of it next year.
Yes.
Getting rid of it.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Next, page 22 at the top, information technology service, same thing, 5,500 to 12,000. What changed there?
That was basically last year. What we did is we had what's his name, Christian on the budget for salaries. He's not salary anymore. He's a contract. So that's basically his contract services.
All right. So moving on to page 25, I don't see, okay, under personnel, there was really, the only significant difference is just the computer software going from 750 to 3,500. And I'm assuming that we're upgrading softwares.
If you could notice there that the computer maintenance has a 0, I'm basically just moving that money over because it was budgeted before under that line item, but it doesn't belong there. It belongs in the computer software. So basically just went down. I put those together.
And on the back, page 26, I see total salaries for municipal court went from 113 to 111. Did we lose somebody there or what happened?
Municipal court. They are at 110. It's basically just a $2,000 difference.
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure that I can pinpoint that one out. Last year was 108. This year is 110. I don't know if they gave a raise to one of the girls throughout the year.
Well, it went down, actually. Went from 113 to 111.
He's looking at the total.
I'm looking at the total, and there's total salaries.
So there's a temporary salary that was no longer there. That's what I'm seeing.
That's it. Now going down under professional services, it went from 9,000 to 37,000. What's the difference there? Under professional services.
Last year, I didn't budget for the legal services that are being provided. I think the judge, and he said he might not need them anymore, but we are still using them, and he's still gonna keep on using them.
Okay. And then dues and subscriptions, we're at 12,000. We didn't have any budget for last year. Is that
Yeah, he's going basically paperless, and he's also doing I believe it was paperless and something else that he's adding to the municipal court there.
No, he mentioned something about going paperless and having the systems in place to do that, which will have an accountability factor and have everything in place to track every incident or situation that occurs. So, all right. Any questions on that one, commissioners? I know it's already late, so, all right, Mr. Perez. I think we went through we went through every department. Anything else that before we begin to close it up today?
I think Mr. Cantu might have a couple of notes, something to consider. I know that if you look at the front page, you want to go over that one, Mr. Cantu, on the general fund?
Yeah. Basically, what the first page is page number 1 is basically saying everything that's pretty much out of the norm that we added this year. Again, this year's budget was pretty much basically based on averages of over the last 5 years expenditures. No department had any major wish list that they were asking for. Most of them are throughout the COs. Basically, the only new expenditures or expenditures that we could probably even look at making some changes, if we were to make any changes, if you have any else to suggest is, we have the police department adding the 3 new officers and 1 lieutenant with those all come up with grants. The city only covers 69,000 of their salaries. The rest is covered with grants. Our department is adding 1 single cab utility vehicle that they need with a trailer. Public Works is adding 1 new crewman, which is going to be used to maintain City Hall, the airport, and also work with the Public Works crew. Parks and Recs is asking for a part-time secretary, which is 13,000, and 1 vehicle, which is 25,000 there. Planning department had an animal control position added to their budget and $35,000 added for zoning. The zoning is supposed to be starting this year. Half of that supposed to get paid by the end of this year, and then the remainder next year. And again, our health insurance increased by 100,000 this year compared to last year. Now, all this is already included in the budget that's being proposed right now. You can see it on page 66. We're like $96,000 in the red, so we might end up, if we don't want to pass a budget that's in the red, we're gonna see what we can cut back on. And me and Mr. Perez have already looked at it, and we have some suggestions, but I guess it's up to the board to decide. Our fund balance, if you can look on page 2, by the end of this year, we're estimating that it's going to be at 1,171,000, but that's not counting COVID CARES grants. There's some money that's going to be brought in from that, so that might put us closer to our goal, which is 1.5 million in our fund balance, and we always want to keep it there. That's pretty much 3 months of operations for the city. I know this year we didn't budget for boys and girls. That's normally 93,000. That's covered there. I know next year's budget is going to be much tougher to. I still have to work on some projections to present to the board. It'll be later on this year where I get those numbers ready, because we do need to start getting ready for the future, especially since we got the CEOs and we got to start making payments on them starting next year. So those are basically all the major notes that I have to add here.
Okay.
On the getting ready part, as an example, Mayor and Commissioners, once we have the safety building up and ready, and if we're gonna keep the old fire department location, that would require the city to add a minimum of 9 additional firefighters in order to operate 2 locations. So the cost of 9 firefighters would have to be considered when the building is done, and we're anticipating the building is going to take about a year to get done by completion. So we're looking at probably the following year, and that's a little bit about what Mr. Cantu's alluding to. These are things we need to sit down and crunch the numbers and prepare for the following year, because we're going to add staff. By then, we'll probably be looking at additional police officers also. to be able to run the cells that you're asking for, you're looking at a minimum 3. We'll get into the details because Chief Castillo is still working those details out, but he'll have to have staff to be able to man the holding cells, even if they're going to generate revenue. And all those numbers need to be looked at in consideration in planning, not towards the end of this coming year or early next year. So those are the things that we need to, be aware of.
Okay. Anything else before we finish today? I know it's already 9 o'clock or 9:17. Commissioners, anything else? I know we have some time to mull it over, but give it some thought and what else we need to do. No? All right, Mr. Perez, anything else before we close today?
That's good. It's thank you for your attention to this. It's important. And if you have any questions, any of you have questions, don't hesitate to call myself or Mr. Cantu between tomorrow, anytime. We'll have a meeting, a city meeting tomorrow. So hopefully we'll get to all your questions answered between now and then.
Okay. So if there's at this time any other things with commissioners, any other questions? No. All right. If there's no objection, meeting is adjourned. No objection, meeting adjourned. It is 9:17 p.m.